Well, that was a track. If you guys know where that song is from, extra points, extra credit to the student that can put it in chat before the end of the show. Welcome to another class of GQAzndood Gaming Academy. It is March 11, 8 o'clock here in Bellingham, Washington. It is cold and frisky outside as always. We got a stacked show for you tonight. I hope you're all ready because we're diving into gaming history, rumors, debates, and of course, some good old-fashioned chaos. Not Chaos Legion, but, chaos. First up, this week in gaming history, we're talking about some classic games that are long overdue for a remake. If you got one in mind, drop it in the chat. I want to hear what you're talking about. Then we're stepping into the ring for another box art battle, and check this out. This time we're throwing down with some old school fighting game covers. Which ones are iconic? Which ones look like they were made in Microsoft Paint? Because I can tell you which one that I think that one fits the bill. We'll find out. Next, in news and rumors, Nick, aka the Tragically Elite, is bringing us the latest gaming scoops, including a spicy little rumor that a possible new Xbox system is coming out. Is Microsoft cooking up something big? We'll figure it out here in a second. And of course, all my Monster Hunter fans out there, the tech with Blazing Ace Nelson is going all in on the Insect Glaive tonight. If you've ever wanted to vault through the air like a ninja with a bug sidekick, this is the lesson for you. Then we're gonna get into the rhetorical with the big question: are modern game prices fair? Or are we just throwing money into the void? Let's talk value, DLC, madness, and whether a $70 game is really worth it to be a $100 game in today's market. Oh, and did I mention we have a surprise guest tonight, courtesy of Blazing Ace Nelson. So if you want to know who's crashing class, stick around. Hit that like button, share the stream. Let's get into it. GQAzndood Gaming Academy Class 23 starts now. And as you know, guys, I don't do this by myself. The faculty here is ready to help me out, and I wanted to make sure that we introduce everyone properly. But with that said, let me introduce the man, the myth, the legend, the Blazing, the Ace, and the Nelson.
Class, welcome back. We're here for another awesome session, and just as GQ mentioned, tonight's going to be stacked. I want to get into the tech this week, but considering what we've got going, it's possible we may have to take a rain check on that one. But either way, I am definitely looking forward to the next couple hours with all of you. So stick around. It's going to be fun.
Real talk, I do want you to get to the tech because I've been playing Monster Hunter Wilds and I'm excited to learn about the Insect Glaive. So another thing that I'm excited about is hearing what the Tragically Elite has to say, because I know he's got something up his sleeve or some kind of info that we don't know about. Where is he? There he is.
I'm here.
I'm here. Present.
And the sleeves are a little long tonight, so maybe I wasn't prepared to pull anything out of the sleeves, but I do appreciate you calling that out.
It's all that hot blazing fire you got in that room.
Sure. That's why I changed perspectives again, just in case. Got to get that heat distribution.
Well, you are upstairs. Heat rises, right?
Yeah, it does. I'm on the third floor, and these ceilings may be a little bit vaulted, but it still traps just fine.
All right, Ace, I know you know this our guest specifically here. I'd love for you to introduce him to the class and to the audience. So, who we got with us today?
Absolutely. So, back in my younger days, when I was a somewhat younger, scrapping hooligan on the streets,
Sparking Ace Nelson.
I was actually a part of another rather long-running podcast. We call it the best podcast you've never heard of, but the what's the word? The Kyodai, the big brother of the Metro City Boys podcast, is here with us tonight as one of our special guest adjunct professors here at the Gaming Academy. Let me introduce y'all to the man, the Renaissance man, the bicyclist, the daddy of Monster Hunter, Mr. Oliver Campbell.
The origin story.
Thank you for that intro. I like to say smoldering Ace.
Smoldering Ace Nelson.
Smoldering Ace, right?
Ace Nelson.
Right. He's just barely keeping up.
I like that.
Just a little bit. Just like, ooh, it's warm.
I didn't know it was a rank, so now I know. So welcome, man. Hey, good to have you here. A little bit of Ace's past, and of course, I always welcome other perspectives. It sounds like you're no stranger to the podcast game, so welcome and good to have you.
Oh yeah, no, I'm hyped to be here. This sounds like it's going to be a good time.
Fantastic. All right, guys, we got a lot to cover, so let's just jump right into it, right? So we all know that what's coming up here. Yo, check this out. So let's go.
Yo, check this out. Yo, check this out.
Here we go. All right.
So good we have it twice.
Yeah, it's so good. It's a yo-yo, so run back. So if you guys
Oh,
are
it
new
came
to
back. Sorry, my mistake.
if you guys are new to this channel, yo, check this out. Is where we check out some funky stuff all across the gaming world. This week we're doing a box art battle versus East versus West, courtesy of specific fighting games in the retro world. So let's just jump right into it. And so my choice for this week was retro, right? And I tried to get one from Super Nintendo, Genesis, and PlayStation. Sorry, Saturn, you almost made it, but you did not. So let's get going. So
Plenty of other weeks to do that too.
Yeah. let me ask the panel this. Do you guys remember a fighting game called Power Moves on the Super Nintendo?
I do.
Okay.
But again, that's kind of cheating because I worked in a retro store.
I mean, yeah, that's true. That's true. Now, my history with this game, of course, this was the game that I had to play because Street Fighter wasn't out yet, right?
Makes sense.
Throw it on there for you guys. So, does anybody remember this box art? This box art is kind of wild.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Ugh.
The amount of liquid coming off of this man's face is actually disturbing. I don't think any human's supposed to lose that much fluid all at once.
It's the Mortal Kombat sweat.
No,
yes,
it's the Darkstalkers 3 hit sparks before Darkstalkers 3.
I like that. See, only fighting game players know that. So that's incredible. So has anybody played this game at all? Minus Nick and I. Okay. It was garbage. So you didn't miss out. You're good. You're
Perfect.
good. All right. Now here's what it looks like in the Japanese version. Not called Power Moves, but called Power Athlete. So a little bit different.
Every time it's the dopest artwork you've ever seen. It's like the Frank Frazetta of video game box art in Japan, and then they literally have a 9-year-old just draw this stuff for the American audience. It's fine. They don't care. They don't care.
Like Dandy's calling out in the chat, like I'm sad that this doesn't have like someone getting punched with a bunch of like a handful of milk.
Yeah, it's I would like to assume that Power Athlete had its art ready to go, right? And they were like, okay, let's send this to the West. But this box art isn't gonna do it for us. So let's get the other one, call it Power Moves, So it's pretty rough. So I would say Japan is the winner on this round. What do you guys think?
Oh, they totally won. Look, they're fighting on Mars, for Christ's sake. I'm like, yo, I don't know what's happening, but I want to be there.
And just in case y'all forgot, I'll pull back Power Moves.
Right. So on Power Athlete, they're fighting on Mars. Like it's like John Carter. But we go over to Power Moves, and it's a lunchroom brawl.
That kind of looks like I went down to like the to the pier and got a caricature photo.
Yeah,
like, painted.
absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
It's like let's take the Karate Kid and make it into a Street Fighter 2 caricature.
I mean, I love this sweet like Padawan cord coming out the back there at the base. Like that was a choice.
The exact same thing. It's like when the more you look at it, this has gone beyond awful and has actually become beautiful in a weird mutated way. Because I'm realizing we have Padawan Steve Buscemi. I'm like, so that's
actually I figured it out. As you said, the more you look at it, the worse it gets. That dude has so many wrinkles. They're slapping the youth out of him with that punch. Like it's just him aging in real time.
I feel like somebody with like really good artistic skills, like traditional artistic skills, was like, you make two guys fighting each other. They made it. This is what they ended up with.
Close enough. Ship it.
All right.
Ship it, baby.
We're going to switch over to the Sega Genesis real quick with a game called Street Smart. Has anybody played Street Smart before?
I haven't played it, but I'm fairly confident I have heard of that one.
Okay. So
heard of it at least, but
so Street Smart was kind of like a lane fighter, and you guys can look this up when you guys get a chance. But there was a Street Smart arcade machine in my local laundromat in Chicago, and it was the most quarter muncher thing ever. I think you got like 2 lives for per 50 cents, and then the bosses would just each time they'd punch you, you'd lose like 50% of your life. So it's rough. It's rough. So you can tell they're kind of doing like the double dragon thing here. So it is kind of like a fighting game / brawler mix. I would say it's a more elaborate version of like the B mode in Double Dragon 2. You know how you do the one thing. So it's kind of like that. But yeah, not bad. You know, art. This is the Japanese art, of course, the Mega Drive cartridge, right?
But the guy in the background looks like he's having a good time.
Yeah, he's just kicking air. He's like, "What?" You know?
Yeah, it's Jean-Claude Van Damme in Breaking.
He's
just
like
kind of doing his thing.
Precursor to Axel, you know, from Streets of Rage. But here's the US version.
Oh boy, here we go.
I feel like he's going to show me something that's going to offend me on principle. I'm excited.
Look.
Oh my god!
Again, it's power moves again.
But man, what change of tone we got going on over here?
We have blue steel in the center there.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. This, my friends, this is actual art. Let me tell you why. Because this cover looks like how AI now thinks a video game cover should look.
Ooh-wee.
Right? I mean, we got a lot going on here. One, we got crazy perspective. Either AI did this or this is art from an after school special in 1988. Right?
So
like I know OG
special. Yeah, I'm with you on that just because of the title. The way that's written reminds me of like those straight to VHS, just like Mr. T had a motivational film in the 80s, one of my favorite bad movie night things to watch. Mr. T's Be Somebody or Be Somebody's Fool. That was the title. Like this has that same kind of vibe in that title alone. that is not a joke. Look it up. It exists.
I'm waiting after for these messages vibe.
Yeah, I'm waiting for OG Readmore to come on next. Like, damn, I gotta read this book. Like, if you don't read a book, you'll get thrown through a fucking window. Like, how do you know? It's right there.
It's just so wild. Like, this is what the Americans would like. You know, they would make this. You know, it's kind of crazy. The 80s was a weird time. It kind of really showed the market of like, this is what the representation of this Eastern video game in the West, right? So it's kind of crazy. Also, whatever happened to Trico? I don't want to go off tangent, but Trico, is that still around? Anybody know?
Oh, I doubt it's still around. It's more so like, are we taking like an over under what year they stopped existing? I'll look that up while you move on to the next one.
All right. Next one is a common fighting game household name for those who have a Genesis. Also, we're still on the Genesis, so I'm gonna put it up on the screen right now. All right. Once it loads, because it's super high res, we want to make sure to get the best quality.
Oh yeah.
Everybody see the reactions. Everybody knows what's up. Okay. All right. So everybody knows this box art, the cart, right? I don't think there was any other version of the US box art with Eternal Champions. I think maybe you got the plastic case first, then you got the cardboard one later, right?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about before. They priced. I remember this having a cardboard re-release.
Mm-hmm. I love Green Lantern Blade over there. Like it's like it's such a good mix.
Right. The plus side for this one is that it's still at the very least, you know, looked like one of those, you know, what you see is what you get kind of things. You could look at the US box art for Eternal Champions and at the very least go, okay, I can expect to see those 4 characters at least on the roster.
Right. And the characters aside, kind of what you were bringing up before about Frank Frazetta, the background in this, very well detailed, looks really cool. Like I could get into this kind of thing before realizing what the game was. But yeah, the background at least definitely sells me.
It teases you. Up. Yeah, the expectation. Now, it's funny that you say, Ace, what kind of characters you get in this game, because the Japanese version actually tells you the roster on its cover. So, yeah, so let's wait for this to load up, and there you go. Nice. So not much different, right? Yeah, less red. That's all I can say. But it actually tells you all the characters you can get on the right hand side, which is kind of weird if you think about it. Like, I wonder what the characters' names are in this game, and then there it is in the cover.
There you go.
So you said, look, Green Lantern Blade, and it's Blade. You're like, oh, okay.
So it's funny because this is the Mega Drive, so it is Japanese, but they put the character names in English.
That's true. It is. Was it a US developed game? Anybody remember?
It was Sega published. I don't remember if it was an internal team.
Okay, all right.
I'll look it up. But on that note, Trico, also credited as Trico Corporation Limited, was based out of Torrance, California. They were open from 1990 to 1993.
All right, so they had one game.
3 years.
Got it. One game.
Warsong, Fight Masters, Sorcerer's Kingdom. But they also did arcade ports. So like we saw Street Smart. They also did it for Atomic Robo Kid, Task Force Harrier X, and Twin Cobra. So they did some ports.
Love me some Twin Cobra. All right, Chad, here we go. Here's the next one. Let me know if you played this also. If you played Power Moves, I'm curious if you've played this obscure game also. I'm all about the obscure games here. Once it loads, it's like 4K image.
Oh, yeah. Tough enough.
All Might.
All Might. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I never realized that. Oh, I hate that.
Oh, you hate it now?
I hate that.
Hey, Punk, are you ready to go plus ultra?
Is this a Jim Lee cover or is it Rob Liefeld? Right? We never really realized that, but the lining looks very similar. So, another thing with all the 4 main characters to fight: CEO, Zazie, Katono, and Vorts. Nothing like fighting against Vorts. So, here's the thing. In Japan, this game was not called Are You Tough Enough? It was actually called Dead Dance. And I think it reflects a little bit better to what the actual game is in this box art from Jalico. Love Jalico. All right.
Once again, another Frank Frazetta cover. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. I'm like, Jesus, this is epic.
Yeah, I think that was like their jam over there, and of course this has a little bit of Mad Max into it, right? As you can tell, that was big with them during that time. That's how we got Fist of the North Star. So this is definitely Dead Dance, Fist of the North Star at home. So yeah, it's you guys ever played this game at all? Remember? Are You Tough Enough? Right?
Yep.
Yeah, definitely different. And I've never seen the box art to these games till recently, and so it explains a lot now. Sometimes you get a game in America and you play and you're like, this has nothing to do with the box cover. So this was the original look for this. All right, I'm gonna put in something a little bit more familiar with everybody, and of course, I think people would agree. And this is the PlayStation fighting game.
Ah, man, that takes me back. That takes me back to 12, 13 years old, man.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Probably one of the first games I played on the PlayStation. Rented, first of all, right? Street Fighter Alpha. And of course, in Japan, it is not called Alpha. It is called Street Fighter Zero. Technically the prequel to Street Fighter.
That's pretty cool.
That on the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and once again, we're back to this whole you noticing a pattern here, like with the art style that they're using in the West. It's almost like this graffiti-ish, right?
I mean, that kind of goes with what the times were, like the extreme counterculture-y kind of thing that we had. So I get the market. We've had this discussion before, right? About just the market and why they're kind of going for it. That being said, we have the benefit of hindsight now. So looking at these, you're like, oh, Zero, that cover looks way more like atmospheric. Like it really get pulled into like the mood of this one versus the other one's like, hey, it's like a cool comic booky kind of thing. Yeah. Doesn't have the same impact. Maybe that's just us maturing as gamers. Speaking on the art, just to go back to it really quick on Eternal Champions. So the reason we all kind of thought that background was just so cool, and it was the same on both, that was actually painted by Julie Bell, who's a American fine artist, illustrator, photographer, and bodybuilder, who is also a wildlife painter. So big fantasy artist. She'd been doing it for years. So she was actually the one who did the cover art for that. That's why we were all commenting like, wow, this looks like a Frazetta artwork. It looks so professional. Like they had a professional come in and paint the background for that, or the box art for it.
I didn't expect the bodybuilder part. You got me with that one. You're just like, I had a professional artist and bodybuilder. I'm like, oh, okay,
hey, so Julie's got on her profile. I'm gonna rock it. Like she's got a diverse background and obviously knows what she's doing with painting. So
That's a Renaissance woman.
She has quite the resume for sure. From what you've listed, I want to just throw this in there. The sequel to Street Fighter Alpha 2 on the Super Nintendo, of course, one of the last games to come out on that console. Iconic cover was replicated during an Evo match, right? You guys remember that with Chris G, where one guy wanted to challenge him and they replicated this image. Super cool. Wanted to show this real quick, and also this is like one of the better examples that it translated better from Japan to the US. Basically, almost like 90% similar. Right? The Zero is of course different, but the art is they stuck with the art. They were like, all right, we'll just stick with it. I don't know what caused them to do that, but they thought it was good enough. So
well, again,
and they made the right call. They sure did. They made the right call.
Right call.
Hands down. Like, I've never even told my wife this, and I tell her all kinds of video game history crap that she definitely doesn't want to hear. This is my favorite video game cover art of all time.
Yeah.
For Street Fighter Alpha 2, because it tells you everything. It tells you everything about Akuma. It tells you everything about Ryu. He doesn't give a shit, right? I will fight you. I will fight you in the woods, right? I will fight you amongst the bamboo. I will take your ass to China, and I will light you up over all them damn drowned springs. It doesn't matter. Ryu he's the world warrior, and you can see it right there. It's the beginning of that stuff, right? He does not care. He will face any contender. That's my boy. I love him to death, and it's just a perfect little moment. And then we hit Street Fighter 3 peak, and it's just been downhill since. You'd be like, yes, and you're like, oh.
But I mean the inspiration behind this particular piece is the same inspiration behind you mentioned Street Fighter 3, Alex and Hugo squaring up.
Yep, correct.
Thank you.
Correct. Pop culture references, right?
Yep. Is Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant,
which would have been a really cool SF3 cover if you think about it, right? To celebrate the new characters, but we all know we're kind of set in our ways, and Street Fighter doesn't sell without Ken and Ryu, so it's just proven at that point. Here's another thing that surprised me also. I'm going to throw up here, not vomit, but throw up.
Good save.
Yeah. We all know this beloved fighting game title, right? We love it for its gameplay and its graphics, right? So we just want to make sure we all love this game for the proper reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
no, it's true. It's true. They're fantastic fighting games, oddly enough. But people see boobies and they just lose their mind.
Well, and speaking of funny enough, it's like one of the best beach volleyball simulators on the market, hands down.
It's true.
This is my new best friend. Listen, my wife's in the audience right now. I've been telling her this is one of the best volleyball games ever made, hands down. You came for the movies, then it got serious. You're like, hold up.
Hold up. There's gameplay depth here.
It's like, hold up. I got to get this girl some lipstick, or she's not going to perform tomorrow. You
best
doing whatever
volleyball game since Super Spike.
There's facts.
Pretty good.
I got Super Spikes in on the shelf.
I've had to do similar conversations. I mean, and Andre in chat knows this. I'm a big Yakuza Like a Dragon stan, and I love Zero just for the cabaret minigame. Like, I played that so much. It's my favorite minigame in the entire series. So I mean, I've had conversations like, why are you buying her a dress? It's like, her stats go up. She's S now. Like, you don't understand.
You're trying to make that money. I know. When I played Yakuza 0, I was like, I never touched Yakuza before. It was my first one, starting with 0. So I got to drink in the whole insanity of the experience. And then the cabaret happened. I said, damn, this got real. I got to run a business here. And the next thing I know, there was no other game. I was like, no, I got to help this girl out. Like, no,
I've been trying to get James to get into Zero just for that reason, just to understand the depth.
I understand the depth. It's just that's why I don't want to put too much, time into it.
You're just gonna have no time for anything else.
Yeah, I got to set some time aside.
All right, started off with haha bicycles, and the next thing you know, you're like, I got to run this business. I don't give a damn what's going on with Kiryu. Like, oh, he's being framed. I'm like, that's Kiryu's problem. So, look, these men are not just gonna give up their money. Okay, I need their money, and I need fine looking women to do it. And you're like, oh, I became a pimp accidentally.
Side quest. Hopefully there's an achievement for that. All right, I'm gonna throw up the Japanese box art, which I think is less loud for once It's a little bit more subtle, and I love the recycle symbol there for some reason.
Yeah, actually, I really like that one too.
Yeah,
we definitely reuse this shit. Don't hold it against us. Like,
I love the 3D combative sports like title. That's great. I love that title. Dead or Alive. So
it's moody though.
Pretty
it's
clean.
Moody. I like it.
Clean. Yeah, it's also hard to tell what this is, right? Like, versus the other one where it's like, bam, these girls are in your face. This one is just like, look at our eyes, we're pretty.
No, it is. It's like I'm like,
mysterious.
Okay, I'll play. I want to know. I want to know about the pretty-eyed lady.
Would you like to know more?
Especially it's called Dead or Alive. You're like, that's an aggressive title.
I just love how small they made the 3D. It's like 3D competitive arts, like really quiet about the fact it's like a fighting game, like anywhere on that.
I feel like I've used that font before in like my own graphic design, so
yeah,
it's kind of interesting. But yeah, guys, that is check this out for this week. What did you guys think? Which one? Who won this session? I think it's a clear winner. Japan is just better at art than we are, but art, of course, is subjective.
So. On this week, yes, I think that East won because we had, unfortunately, Street Smart to look at, and that just really pulled everything down a little bit.
Yeah, that was I wanted to find one that was so different from the original vision that oh boy it was.
No, I'm glad you did, because that reminded me, and I shared it on our Discord chat for another week, but there's like the 10 examples of bad video game box art. Maybe that'll come back in conversation. But there's some stuff, like a couple I completely forgot about thanks to Street Smart.
Japan stomped us into the ground, but we do have to give special honorable mention to Eternal Champions, because that is baller. I mean, I really want to go fight somebody on Mars. I want Elon to get to Mars just to make that cover become reality. That's what I want. I want to fight Blade John Stewart. I don't know if we're fighting Green Lanterns or if we're fighting motherfuckers from He-Man. Like, like I don't know, but I want to be there to see it. I want the Mars war to happen. So we got to give it up to her.
Yeah, if you think about it, the game was a timepiece, right? Everybody was like from a different timeline or time source, something like that. You had Caveman and Mafia Man. It was crazy. Like, check it out. Go play Eternal Champions, chat. If you've never played it, it's a wild ride, right? All right, but anyway, that is check this out for this week. All right, so coming up next, of course, is This Week in Gaming History, everyone's favorite. So we all know we love this intro. Wonderful. If that doesn't get you amped up, man, go figure out life. So I don't have to tell you, it's a pretty good intro song. All right, we're gonna be doing a little bit of backtracking here for a lot of games that need to be remade. And speaking of remake, we got the Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes on the GameCube in 2004 getting remade before a remake, right? Technically, this was a remake before remakes were a thing. So fantastic. I'll note some other games here. And do you have some video up, Lee?
Always.
Just
keep an eye on that side monitor. I got you covered.
All right, cool. All right, I'm going to go name off some stuff here while you guys watch some footage. All right, Tenchu Return from Darkness on the Xbox in 2004. The Suffering on the PS2 and Xbox in 2004. Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter on the 360 in 2006. Super Smash Brothers Brawl on the Wii in 2008. Final Fantasy 13 on the PS3 360 in 2010. Yakuza 3 on the PS3 in 2010. Mobile Suit Gundam Extreme vs. Maxi Boost in the arcade in 2016 in Japan. Resident Evil 4 Remake, the one that came out in 2023, came out on everything. So another note here, also in 2005, Sega Europe acquires Creative Assembly, the team we know today as the devs behind the titles like the Total War series, Alien Isolation, Halo Wars 2, and Endless Dungeon. So awesome. All right. Any of those titles stand out to you guys? I know Ace got a few highlights here.
Yeah, there were definitely a couple that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention. The main one being Final Fantasy 13. That one was actually one of the first, big games that I had actually purchased for my Xbox 360 back when I first got it. And as polarizing as it can be for a lot of reasons, you can't deny that at the very least visually, the game still holds up to this day. I mean, I could go back and fire it up on Steam one of these days, and heck, even back on the little Alienware rig that I used to have, courtesy of Oliver, I could still run Final Fantasy 13, and it still looked crisp, and the gameplay itself was a nice little hybrid between the classic turn-based systems that you know and love, and a little bit more of the setting up gambits and macros like you could in Final Fantasy 12.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it took 12 and streamlined the process. It gave you like what specific like roles, right? Sentinel, like aggressor or something like that.
Yeah.
Super cool. And I wasn't a fan of it because it was so different from the usual formula. But as I played it, I actually enjoyed it more because I felt like I was doing less like micromanaging and letting the game itself decide for me in a way that I'm like, okay, you're gonna be the tank. All right, you're gonna defend and heal, right? So I kind of enjoyed it later on. It grew on me per se.
Yep, and you could say that it was refined quite a bit once 13.2 hit.
And then 13.3.
Well, that was totally different, right? Wasn't it?
I have yet to play that one actually.
You haven't played 13.3 Lightning Returns?
Nope.
Yeah, they went back to like the like almost like the class outfits, I think, in 10.2. So, what else?
Yeah, I didn't. It's good you mentioned that just because I didn't really get into Final Fantasy till like a little bit later in life. I mentioned before, like the first Final Fantasy I actually played just because my family didn't have a lot of money, so I didn't get a choice on what kind of consoles I owned when I was younger. So when I started working at a retro store, Final Fantasy X was my first. So that was like my entry and what I expected from what I know about JRPGs. So going into this was just different. It was so different. And this is before I got really into like the Tales games and really expanded out like my JRPG palette and what I'm into. So I just didn't enjoy this one when it first came out. I remember when it launched, a lot of people had a lot of pushback because they didn't like the characters in it. I remember people didn't like Snow or whatever. It was... I just remember it didn't hit the mark. And this came out, what year? This was 2010. This is 3 years after Lost Odyssey hit, right? If I remember right. Like, there was classic JRPG titles out there that were doing it well and had been established or had been like sleeper hit kind of things. And then Final Fantasy comes out trying to do something new and it didn't quite hit. But like you said, the later releases kind of like return to form a little bit, and I think it by the end of it people appreciated it, and like you said, go back, you can appreciate it more now. But I think it was such a big shift, a paradigm shift. There we go.
There you go. I see what you did there.
Credit for the day. Look at you. Just in case you fail on the test, it's like, wow, you did get the extra question.
It's on the screen.
I highlighted Metal Gear for the reason of it's a remake already, right? So, and I know everybody loves Metal Gear, Solid, that is. So I'm wondering if they're gonna do a remake of a remake. So that's all I really had to say about that one. So that's an interesting one because in this age of remakes, they already kind of remade this one already in the GameCube. So interesting.
I just had a discussion about that last night. Talking about with Metal Gear Solid Delta coming around the way in August, and I think Konami's kind of gonna try and do that. Like they're kind of on an attempt at a redemption arc right here. Silent Hill 2 came out and people actually really liked how that went, and now we've got Metal Gear coming redone in Unreal. And I kind of looked at this. I was like, I really kind of want to see the original Metal Gear done in a similar fashion. So I think if Delta goes over well, it would not surprise me that they do this, especially with Silicon Knights not really being a thing now.
Yeah,
and it tied up in all kinds of weird rights issues. I wouldn't be shocked to see it.
Well, we've seen how well the Resident Evil remakes have done. If Delta, it's done in this like HD level, this kind of like revisiting on that kind of quality level, then yeah, absolutely. Why not continue to release these? And they're starting, like you said, with Snake Eater. So chronologically, we're starting at the beginning and we can very easily move into each one as it stays popular and as it stays financially viable. They build this system now, and they can just keep pumping it out. And we've seen that with the Resident Evils, and they've done fantastic. They keep breaking records.
It's true. It's true. And I honestly think, how during COVID, when they announced Final Fantasy VII Remake, I always joked that Square Enix had this big red button that said panic mode, and it said FF7 Remake on it, launch. And they pushed the button and they made the game. Konami has that same button in their office, and it says Metal Gear Solid Remake on there. So whenever Pachinko just dries up, they're gonna smash that glass and press that button. That's all I gotta say.
Unfortunately, they've got the bigger panic button for Chrono Trigger locked up in the same place where the Ark of the Covenant from Indiana Jones is.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
I'm glad you mentioned that game, because keep your ears posted. We do have a little bit of info about that during the news.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, moving on to 310. We got Panzer Dragoon on the Saturn. 1995 was released in Japan.
Speaking of sweet covers.
Classic. Yep. I wanted to use a Japanese one to honor that. We got Klonoa Door to Phantomile on the PlayStation in 1998 in Japan. Mad World on the Wii in 2009. Dynasty Warriors 7 on the PS3 in 2011 in Japan. Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number came out on pretty much everything you play video games on in 2015. And Ori and the Will of the Wisps on Xbox One in 2020 in Japan. Right? Interesting. All right. What have I got here? So Ace, of course, Dynasty Warriors 7. What you got for us, man?
So, Dynasty Warriors 7 pretty much continued my trend of double dipping with these games, because, honestly, ever since 4, I had hit that point where it's like, I saw that these games were coming out in Japan first, and it's like, you know what? Let me find a way to play these, so that way I could just see what's up. So, Play Asia came through.
Shout out Play Asia.
I ordered Dynasty Warriors 7 through Play Asia, got it 3-4 weeks later, and this was basically one of the series where I was able to really keep on the bleeding edge, as far as not just getting in gameplay, but also learning the tech behind the game, learning the new characters that are introduced, and just being able to check out how how that same story, that same historical fiction, that being Romance of the Three Kingdoms, how the presentation was changed up. And 7 in particular went back to, it did what they did with Dynasty Warriors 4, where it definitely, skewed more towards the traditional Chinese vibe, not just with the music, but also with the focus on each of the different kingdoms or each of the different factions, as opposed to focusing more on individual characters as you go through.
I do remember popping this game in my PlayStation, and the narrative and the way the narration went in this game, the storytelling was peak at the time for a Dynasty Warriors game. And I was actually kind of a little bit sad that they didn't follow that in 8, or it wasn't as good in 8. But that was my first big impression in 7. Also, the only Dynasty Warriors game I ever platinumed. Basically lost all my hair for this game to be platinum. So that's my 2 cents on that. How about you?
One other thing that Dynasty Warriors 7 actually introduced, which was a pretty big shakeup, especially, once I saw the news about it on the Koei Warriors forums, was the ability to actually equip any weapon to any character and switch weapons on the fly.
That's big, because you're normally limited to the character, right, for the weapon. So that was pretty big on this one. All right. I think you had it up there, Nick, for Hotline Miami 2. I chose this one specifically because of the tone of the game. And this was an odd, I felt like it wasn't a roguelike, but it definitely was the Dark Souls of top-down, it's not a twin stick shooter. How do I even explain what this game is? But there was a time where a lot of this type of game was released on PC very commonly. And I can't name it on top of my head, but there were at least 3 I can name of had the same similar formula, which was memorizing patterns, quick, fast-paced reflexes. It's very arcade-ish at the same time, right? how this game really stood out to me was that the tone of the game. It was kind of dark. It was kind of like, like this like indie house style, like mysterious, almost like John Wick-ish, right? But not really. And that's what really stood out would be the most. And the second one was, they really amped it up. But the first one was pretty good too.
Like Grindhouse GTA.
Kind of like that. Yeah. It's hard to explain. It's like it's almost its own kind of category. Yeah. Super cool.
Yeah, it's a little ultra violent. It's more so bringing up like societal stuff and the dregs of society, like a very unabashed, like ultra violent look at things. But it just had that style to it, like you see here. It's kind of a little bit steeped in nostalgia in the gameplay. And like you said, the big draw was, and some of the more difficult levels, and as you like bumped up the difficulty, like they were hard. You had to like strategize how to like go into the room, like what weapons do I have, how much ammo do I have left. I attack these guys, they take me out right away, and you gotta like, okay, I gotta rethink that, and you go back to the beginning of the level. Like it's brutal later on in the game. I remember that much, but at the same time, incredibly rewarding when you finally figure out how to clear those rooms. But yeah, man, it was always the style that got me, and the soundtrack is fantastic.
Very good, very good, very good. So yeah, this one was
absolutely outstanding soundtrack. And to add to that, just because we're all old people here, it's great, but the top down nature of it, like you said, with it's not really a twin stick shooter. It's like, what is it? It always reminded me of Shadowrun on the Genesis, ramped up.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, like when it reminded me of trying to do a corp run, like a physical corp run. That was a very dangerous time to be alive on the Genesis. You're like, oh, I'm gonna go up against Renraku Arcology. It's like, oh, good luck with that, buddy. I hope your dock wagon bill is paid up because you're about to get shot.
For the Shadowrun fans out there, we talked about Shadowrun last week, but the one on the Genesis holds a special place in your retro game heart. So I remember that game very well. It's very. It was ahead of its time too, So absolutely. All right. Speaking of time, Chrono Trigger was released on March 11 in the Super Nintendo in 1995 in Japan. Man, before I move on to this list here, let's see. Let me know if you got the video up there, Nick. But yeah, Chrono Trigger has a special place in all our hearts. I'm assuming. I know Ace has a lot of projects with that. Arguably one of my favorite RPGs of all time. And there's so many time jokes with this game. Like, it's about time we get a remake, right? Or something. I'm sure you can insert a time joke here once in a while. So, but yeah, mixed Dragon Ball art with Final Fantasy RPG, the quality, you get yourself an awesome combination formula here. So I know you guys have stories, so let's go ahead and hear them.
For me, just Chrono Trigger is, I consider it easily in the top 5 video games of all time. I mean, when people younger than me ask about Chrono Trigger and what it means, I basically say, I'm like, this is the Back to the Future of video games. Like, it's that game that holds everything together. Like, people who don't like RPGs like Chrono Trigger just because it's so memorable from start to finish. It introduced whole new mechanics, right? There was, for the most part in video games, there weren't really a whole lot of games with a new game plus concept, and for them to go keep your stuff, go back through, and there's a whole bunch of new stuff, and now in the game when you want to, and we're going to present a whole different set of stuff. The replay value is off the charts. It's incredible. It's just incredible. I'm not a fan of Akira Toriyama art style, and I cannot picture Chrono Trigger looking any other way. It just fits here. It's beautiful. It's beautiful work. And of course, it's been just over a year. He passed away last March 1st, right? So, I mean, this is all very timely as well.
Yeah, time joke.
No. Oh, there you go.
All right, Ace, what's your beloved attachment to this game?
And I was actually talking about this. I was actually talking about this yesterday when I was playing Super Mario RPG on stream. It's not just that this game is, a timeless classic content-wise. Yes, I said what I said. But
that too.
But as far as core memories that I have of Chrono Trigger, it's the same as I have with Super Mario RPG. This is, again, Oliver mentioned that even people that don't like video games or aren't as big into video games or even JRPGs liked Chrono Trigger. The first time I played this was, again, over that same weekend that I had actually borrowed this Super Mario RPG, Final Fantasy III, Zelda: Link to the Past, and a nice small little selection of games from one of my brother's friends who was on the football team at the time. So it's like, wait, somebody playing football, but they also play video games too. And then, my brother decides to go ahead, borrow these games, and we spent countless hours just going through these. We literally re-borrowed Chrono Trigger and Super Mario RPG as often as we could until we beat it. This is bonding with family for me.
Hell yeah, it's awesome. But you, Nick, you dabble in Chrono Trigger at all?
Yeah, later in life though, because I didn't have a SNES until I started working.
Yeah, you're the Gen Man here.
Yeah, that's what I had when I was a kid. So yeah, I played it well after the fact. So I don't have as many like nostalgia kind of like throwback feels for it.
Yeah.
But I still recognize it was a lot of fun, and I really dug the story more than anything. Like, the characters were cool. This to me, not to say they're exactly the same, so please don't take it the wrong way. It kind of reminds me a little bit of why I like the Mass Effect games so much and BioWare joints in general, is just because of like the characters and how they interact as part of the squad and like the stories of that team. This kind of had that for me. Each of the characters had a very like particular personality and style, and they were unique in their own ways, but they kind of came together as a team to like stop the end of the world essentially.
And then of course, as a further sort of callback to the Mass Effect games, decisions having consequences.
Yeah,
it's true.
It felt like it had weight. And that might be one of the reasons it's so kind of like it's so timely for people too.
I love it. The time jokes. All right. Well, happy birthday, Chrono Trigger. I think it was your birthday today. So fantastic.
30th.
Happy 30th. Hopefully we'll see another one in the form of like Dragon Warrior, right? And that kind of style. I'm looking forward to that. If they ever decide to panic button that game too, we're all here for it, or maybe throw a curveball with us and do a Chrono Trigger 3. That would be insane. So, or whatever. But all right, other games that came out, we got to give these guys credit as well. The Art of Fighting 2 came out also on the Neo Geo in 1994. The Art of Fighting 3 came out in the arcade in 1996. It's the month of fighting. Zone of the Enders, the second runner on the PS2 in 2003. Also, the Monster Hunter made its debut on the PS2 in 2004 in Japan. House of the Dead 2 and 3 return on the Wii in 2008. Dark Souls 2 came out on PS3 and the 360 in 2014. Titanfall on the PC in 2014, and another Ori game and The Blind Forest on the PC and Xbox One in 2015 as well. Pretty loaded day for games. I chose Monster Hunter because we're all playing Wilds right now. And for those that are new to the series, this game was punishing for those that didn't understand the game. Including myself. I'm speaking from experience. When I first played this game, there was no other game anything like it before. I thought the game was terrible. I was like, how do people play this game? Like, carrying stuff takes forever. Hitting things is so clunky, right? And I never realized that's just the part of the game that what makes it unique and enjoyable. And because I was just used to like beat 'em ups and kind of like these fast-paced Dynasty Warriors like games, right? And the title like Monster Hunter, I was like, okay, I'm going to be fighting monsters. But the way I fought them felt kind of weird. And honestly, I didn't really go back to Monster Hunter until Monster Hunter on the Wii U. Is that Generations? I can't remember which one that is.
On the Wii U, it's 3 Ultimate.
Yeah, 3 Ultimate?
Yeah.
And I was like, this game's actually pretty fun. And I don't know what changed in my brain. It's almost the same as the time where I tried sushi for the first time as a kid, and I hated it. And as an adult, I love it. Right? So your palate will change over time. So if you hate a game when you're very little, try it again. Maybe you'll love it as an adult. Because Monster Hunter for me was that game that I didn't have a good first impression with. And with that said, Zone of the Enders, the second runner, was the song of the intro for today. If anybody knew that on the panel, fantastic. Chat, if you guys knew that, honestly, you guys are awesome. It's a very unique game, the sequel to the Zone of the Enders game, which was, like I said last time, pretty much was sold for the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo, right? Because it is a Hideo Kojima game. Speaking of that as well. All right, anything else for the 11th, guys?
On to the next day.
On to the next day, the 12th. We got Command & Conquer, Red Alert Uprising. I love this box art cover. Also, my favorite part of the game was the in-game full motion videos. Those were fun as well. So, does anybody have any history of playing Red Alert or Red Alert 3 in general?
Red Alert, yes. Red Alert 3, no. I'd fallen off the Red Alert train by the time that this one came out. But the original I played religiously. I loved the original, and that was actually my big kickoff into RTS was Red Alert, Warcraft 2 and 3, and StarCraft. Like, those were the ones, the RTSs I played all the time. So I love the series. And like you said, the FMVs, man, like, love it. It's still hilarious to this day. Just seeing someone like Tim Curry go way over the top in some of their like videos. Like it's so cool to see.
Yeah, which is also surprisingly that I feel like they've kind of like stopped doing that, and instead they digitize the actor and they put him in the game rather than just filming like a set or something. You know, so it's very interesting on the path that they've taken to kind of go away from that and like, let's take some extra steps and digitize you, put you in the game. Because technically, if you played Death Stranding, they could have just done that as a whole ass movie. You know, if you think about it, really, honestly. So, all right, I'm gonna put something on the screen here. All right, so I'm going to name off some other games for this day. My choice for this day was Ogre Battle March of the Black Queen on the Super Nintendo in 1993 in Japan, Bushido Blade 2 on the PlayStation in 1998 in Japan, Gundam Battle Assault on the PlayStation in 1998 Japan. Japan just killing it today. Ring of Red on the PS2 in 2001. Muso Orochi Z on the PS3 in 2009 in Japan. Surprised Ace didn't highlight that one. Darkstalkers Resurrection on the PS3 in 2013. Rest in peace. God of War Ascension on the PS3 2013. StarCraft 2 The Heart of the Swarm on the PC and Mac in 2013. Yakuza 0 on the PS3 and PS4 in 2015 in Japan. Tom Clancy's The Division 2 on the PS4 Xbox One in 2019. Neo 2 on the PS4 in 2020 in Japan. And a recently released Contra Operation Galuga came out on everything in 2024 as well. So yeah, any of those games on there do you guys highlight?
I wonder what I'll highlight from this list that's on the screen right now. My favorite in the entire series that you will soon play. And thank you to the person for this video, because that started fantastic on the disco floor. I won't talk your ears off about this one, but I love this one. And it's actually one of my favorite of the Yakuza collector's editions. They released the business edition that came with like a tin card holder for your business cards that had like some of the game's business cards inside, and it has tattoo on the outside of it. Loved it. I brought that with me when I was repping for our company when we went to a distributor meeting out in Nashville, and I showed the guys from Sega that thing. I'm like, this is my pride and joy, and they loved it. Like, at that time, Yakuza wasn't as like big just yet. Like, Zero was like a big jump, and like Andre said, this kind of like saved the series in the West, or at least put it in more people's minds as it started to get more traction on Game Pass. And then Xbox started investing and bringing over all the titles to put on Game Pass, and then we finally got our Ishin release in the West. So this is really the genesis of all that, and really the one, again, anytime someone asks me like, where do I start, like, always start with Zero. Always.
I will start with Zero, Nick. Don't worry.
Okay, you say that. It took me. You're playing Mass Effect now. It's been so long, dude. I don't know how much longer I can wait until they re-release like Yakuza 0 HD. Like, who knows?
All right. Real quick for the ones I chose, Ogre Battle, because if you've played the new game Dio Field Chronicle, you've played over battle. Just keep that in mind, right? For the youngins out there, right? Also, God of War Ascension, I highlighted that one not necessarily because it was a good game for me, but recently there was an announcement from cancellation of Sony of a live service God of War game. And if you remember, God of War Ascension had a multiplayer game where you praised a god like Zeus, Poseidon, or Hades, and then you battled for your god and you collected armor and weapons. So I figured if they were going to make a live service game for God of War, they would make that game be more accessible as a live service. That was the only thing I could think of a live service God of War game. So keep that in mind. As you see it on the screen here, I actually saw this game being played on Maximilian Dude's stream because it was Steve's birthday. And people were joining the servers. Apparently, people still have a copy of this game, and they were playing it. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy. They had a full 8-person lobby, I think, at some point. So it was pretty cool to see these old games come back with people playing it and run pretty well, in my opinion, which is interesting. So super cool. Made me happy. All right. Next one. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say for this day, believe it or not, I actually. Like, as I was looking over the list, I wasn't going to highlight Orochi Z. The one I was going to highlight was Bushido Blade.
Oh, okay. All right.
That one, like, out of all the games that were on that list, like, Bushido Blade is definitely the one that has, like, the most, that has the most hold on me on that roster because, it was a weapon, it's a weapons-based fighter, just like, Soul Blade, aka Soul Calibur, Soul Edge, the Namco's Soul games. But the fact that it was so realistic in how, striking different areas actually, disabled your opponent or could just one shot end the fight. It made the gameplay so much more intense, and it was just a lot of fun, especially with, oh my god, with what's the name, the Highwayman.
The guy with the gun. That's all you gotta say. The guy with the gun.
Man literally brought a gun to a sword fight. Yeah, I mean, I think he's gonna win.
I would argue that man was a cheat code for Bushido Blade 2. If you brought a gun to a sword
demo for Bushido Blade on the original PlayStation may be one of the most played demos of all time, just because you could just stay there forever. You're like, why do I need to buy the game? I've got the whole experience right here. I just slap this guy in the arm. The arm's disabled, right? And so few people have been able to capture that same kind of gameplay with that depth and not have it be fundamentally broken as a consequence. I've always found that interesting. It's a hard act to follow.
They did make a game like that on PC where if it's like Bushido Blade where you hit a body part and they lose that part. I forgot the name of it, but because I knew as streamers were playing, and I was like, this is just like Bushido Blade, right? Of course, I'm the old one in the chat, so nobody knew what the hell I was talking about. But yeah, I just recall that there was a newer game that was made maybe like a year ago. That's like that. But yeah, it's a lost genre, I guess, a super realistic fighting game.
And when you do it poorly, you end up with time killers.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But man, time killers is a special part in my heart because they had an arcade of that in my local roller skating rink, and if you weren't playing, if the KI machine was filled up, the man cave machine was filled up, you were stuck with time killers, and you were the best one because nobody else played fighting games except the person was like, oh, this game looks cool, right? And then you just whoop them. so it was a very interesting game. Speaking of interesting games, Steel Empire on the Genesis came out in 1992 in Japan.
Oh wow.
Looking at this cover, guys, what kind of game do you think it is if you don't know what this game is?
Well, it's definitely about airships. But that is the game. Like, oh god, that's such a classic. It's a classic. It's got some of the best art, right? For style wise. No, it's a blast. It's crazy.
It did remind me of like Final Fantasy Amano art for a second when I first saw it. But yes, it is a shmup. A game called Steel Empire, a shmup. Seems weird just because I feel like it would be like a SimCity game, right? Filled with robots and stuff like that. But no, it was a random shmup. I think developed by Flying Edge, which also was developing like other games like NBA Jam and like Judge Dredd, I think, on a Genesis. It's really weird. But yeah, Genesis Man, have you played this game at all?
I have not. No.
Okay.
This is not my usual thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I do remember seeing this box on the shelf on the US version all the time. I didn't have a Genesis, so I was like, man, I really want to play this because I'm into like Life Force and Gradius, right? But I was just like, I guess I'll wait till I'm older and get an emulator, I guess.
Pretty much.
Other games that came out that day: Super Mario Land 3, Wario Land on the Game Boy in 1994, Descent 2 on the DOS in 1996. Shout out if you know what a DOS is. Final Fantasy X-2 on the PS2 in 2003 in Japan. God of War 2 came out on PS2 in 2007. Resident Evil 5 on the PS3 and 360 in 2009. Journey on the PS3 in 2012. And Yakuza Dead Souls on the PS3 in 2012 as well. Also in 1998, Atari Interactive acquires Atari and all of its intellectual property and got $5 million. It's a good deal. Any games on there? 10-2.
10-2. I think that Final Fantasy X-2 is easily one of the most disrespected games in the Final Fantasy franchise, if not just games, period. When it's actually mechanically an amazing game. It's stellar. It has the best waifus. It's got the dress spheres. It's got a razzle dazzle plot. They blindside you. You're like, oh, I didn't expect that, right? And it gave people closure when they were so upset over the end of Final Fantasy X, right? Yeah. But once it also shows kind of a marked change. Just the 10 overall showed a huge change in Square post. The merger with Square Enix. Once they went into real full voiced over 3D, that company has not been the same. Yeah. Right? Like it's very hit and miss.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Also, is this technically the first time they added a number after a mainline Final Fantasy title?
As I understand it, yes. Yeah. It's the first time they ever did a direct sequel.
Yeah, for sure. And I do remember seeing like the images, the teasers for like the new characters in this game, and I was like, "There's more story, man! I'm intrigued. I have to play this, because it's never been done before, where they continued the story of a Final Fantasy game, or at least the main Final Fantasy game."
I picked a good time to get into Final Fantasy just because I loved the story and acts by the end of it. Like, really, really got into it. I'd mentioned this before, but just so Oliver can hear it, my introduction to playing these games was when I was in college. My friends because I was in Stack 8 in Western, so out in Fairhaven, and the people, my buddies on the third floor, I'd go up and hang out with them after classes, after meals, and they had a PS2 with Final Fantasy X, and I just started watching it one night, like when we were hanging out, just after studies and all that, and I just got into it by watching them, and then every night I'd have them like come down, knock on my door, let me know when they were playing, because I wanted to continue with the story. I got that pulled into it. So I bought a PS2 and Final Fantasy X because of that. And then, of course, I had to buy 10-2 because, like James said, once that trailer hit, awesome trailer, by the way, really got you into like the style of it and the three heroines that were taking the front. I had to have an ending to the story because it just felt like there was a cliffhanger at the end of that. We didn't get the resolution that we do in some of these other Final Fantasy titles. So 10-2 was really sold to me and a lot of people, I feel like, on that fact. It's like, you're going to get an ending to this story, so you have to play it. Then you get in there and people are like, what the hell are dress spheres?
Right? And it's so weird when it's, that's even better for that being your entry into Final Fantasy, because for us old hats, we're going, oh, great. We're actually going mechanically back to Final Fantasy V, where we're changing our jobs and doing that. It was very classic Final Fantasy vibe for us to go, yeah, no, you need to know all these different jobs and change in and out of these things tactically in the middle of a fight. But I want to go on record as saying one thing. This is going to be the most controversial thing I say all night. But Pain is the best girl that's ever been, right? That's my wife. I'll fight any comers. I don't care. She's wonderful. I was like, no, I'm going to marry that woman Like, no, it's guaranteed. I'm going to marry her still. Like, you're like, wait, aren't you married? Yes, and I will have 2 wives. I don't care. She's too cool for school, man. Come on, man. She got that back stance. That sword. I'm like, she's leaving her back open to her opponent. I was like, oh no, she knows what she's doing. Right? She's like, look at this ass and then get cut. I'm like, oh man, she's bad. She was too cool. She was too cool. I absolutely adore 10-2 for what they tried to do. I think people kind of forget that sometimes. Even if a game doesn't completely nail it, sometimes we just have to sit back and admire the attempt at doing something different. It's like yeah, exactly. Like with 13. It's an audio and visual tour de force, right? Mm-hmm. And when you look at 10 and you look at 10-2, come on, like, you can't tell me you didn't get juiced up from Otherworld at the beginning of 10. And next thing you know, I'm like, this is the craziest soccer game I've ever seen in my life. I don't know what's happening, but I want to find out, right? And that was enough to get me in the door.
Yeah, especially that soundtrack too.
I've got a totally random fact on that, just as an aside.
And you calling out your best girl, like, this is now feeling like every subreddit for an anime series that comes out, like, best girl competition. Like, I'm already like, we're gonna fight on this. Not that, I'm gonna put a horse in the game and say, like, which is better, but just after Final Fantasy X, I felt like a lot of people like, who's best girl in Final Fantasy X, because you had people that liked Riku, that liked Yuna, or liked Lulu. And Lulu, I feel if you were a fan of that, you'd like Pain. And so I'm just wondering if there's like a throughput there for you, or okay.
Yes, there is. Yeah, it sure is. That's wife number 3. Like, it's just the way it's gonna be.
Can't wait for season 2. Oh,
but like my little Final Fantasy X aside thing. Let's see. Final Fantasy X came out like on the day of my birthday, right? The day I turned 19. And my one big claim to fame, like my first goofy ace nose, my goofy feat, like, you shouldn't have been able to pull that off, and yet I did, was Final Fantasy X. That game came out, and I dropped it in 3 days, and I recorded it. And this is way back when Funko Land existed. I worked at Funko Land in my youth. And I had 3 days off from work, and I beat the dog shit out of that game. I beat that game into the ground, man. Like, that disc might as well have been on fire by the time I got done with it. I recorded it on VHS and brought it into work to show my boss, because he was like, hey man, how were your days off? I was like, I beat Final Fantasy X. He was like, bullshit. I was like, I knew you'd say that. Here's the VHS of it. And I popped it into the machine. He's sitting there watching, and he's like, what the hell, man? I was like, I didn't have nothing else to do. And the best part of that story is 3 feet from me, that VHS tape still exists.
I was about to say, you still got the tape, don't you?
I still have the tape. Awesome. I walked in there, boy. Sin went and got himself absolved with the fucking damage I did. Right now, I was not playing. They had to go. Like, Jet, he had to go. Nope. You Yevon, he gotta go. Like, he's no longer called you. He's just called me.
This man literally said, check the tapes, I got proof.
I brought the damn tape because I knew there was going to be doubt. Yes, sir.
That's great. That's beautiful. Shout out to Funko Land, wherever you are in gaming heaven, by the way. That's where I got my Saturn, so love you.
It's the best place.
All right. 14th, we're almost there, guys. Homefront on the PC came out in 2011. Last session, we said Turning Point Fall of Liberty was Tragic's game of that time, and Homefront was my version because I didn't play Turning Point. I played Homefront instead, and here it is, released on the 14th. So awesome. Other games that were released that day: Bushido Blade on the PlayStation in 1997 in Japan. A game that needs to be remade, Siphon Filter 2 on the PlayStation, came out in 2000. Onimusha Warlords being remade already on the PS2 in 2001. Wild Arms 3, another good one, on the PS2 in 2002 in Japan. Homefront, of course. Splatoon 2 on the Switch in 2017 in Japan. Attack on Titan 2 came out on PC in 2018. And the scandalous Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection came out on everything in last year in 2024. All right. So what we got here? Is this Wild Arms? Yeah. We need ourselves a new Wild Arms game, please. Who owns the rights? Is it Xseed? Who is it? Raise your hand. So, all right, Ace, tell us about the glorious Wild Arms 3.
Now, Wild Arms 3, like, if you went back and you played the first 2 games, you already got a good idea of the kind of vibe they were going for. Very much that, Sergio Leone spaghetti western feel.
Nice.
It's anime, it's westerns, it's basically Cowboy Bebop if it was actually back then with tumbleweeds and 6-shooters. But what really set Wild Arms 3 apart from the rest, I mean, just take a look at it. On the PS2, this was when a lot of games, especially a lot of more anime styled games, were definitely taking advantage of the tech and actually falling more, or should I say leaning more into the cell shaded design, the stark outlines, the almost painterly brush strokes as the on how the characters are being rendered.
But what was the release date on Wild Arms 3 again? The year?
2002 Japan.
2002. Yeah, no, that definitely tracks. With the art style. Sure.
Yep.
But what really hooked me, because I saw Wild Arms 3 came out, had to pick it up. I was not expecting to start the game with a straight up 4-way Mexican standoff. That
Spider-Man meme.
Like this was a train sequence that I would say very much rivaled Final Fantasy VII. Like the last time I saw any intro that hype, especially just on a similar kind of set piece. It's like literally just after going through those first few fights with Virginia, she gets to that cabin, and then you got her busting out the revolver. You got Clive with the with the scoped rifle, and then you got Jet with the twin pistols and Gallows with the shotgun. This was literally this was your introduction to the cast, and then you get to choose which of the other characters whose backstories leading up to that point you wanted to play. So it was definitely it was a very much a in media res sort of opening, and I absolutely loved it.
Anything, Ace? Does this need a remake or just a new Wild Arms in general?
Oh, without question.
No doubt about it. For sure. Lee just told me that
say anything. Like we need our Huckleberry. We need him bad.
maybe when the Western thing comes back, and video games will follow pop culture and be like, we need to start releasing these old Western games again. I mean, we'll get Red Dead Redemption 3 eventually, also after GTA 6 comes out. So I'm sure it will. All right. Anything else, guys, for that day?
So in another, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years, we'll see Western come back around.
It always recycles every 30 years, so we're almost there. All right, speaking of almost there, we're on the last slide here for the 15th of March. I call it Brave Fencer Musashi, but it's just Musashi Samurai Legend, according to the official title. I chose this one because the box art is foil. That's it. We all know this is like the successor, or is it actually sequel to Brave Fencer Musashi? Ace,
I think it's just a successor.
Right. So because the art style is similar, but the vibe of the game totally different. Right. I mean, this is definitely a product of its time. Feels like I'm shopping a Hot Topic all over again back in 2005 with this image right here. So you got some image up on there, Nick. All right, cool. So
man, I was working in the store that day that released. And
really?
I was the juiced up guy for it, and I took that home. And let me tell you, it's like review of the week, man. My disappointment was immeasurable. My day was ruined.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially coming off of how crazy good Brave Fencer Musashi is on
Yep.
PlayStation. Like, oh man, that game has no business being that good. No child with a head that big. You playing as Japanese Stewie Griffin, and you cheered for him the whole time. And then Samurai Legend happens, and you're just like, what is this? Right? You're like, oh, we're gonna follow up. We're gonna have all those cool mechanics.
No, the charm of the original game was like you like really was excited to be in that world until like I don't know, like the vibe of Musashi, the OG one, the Brave Fencer Musashi, was like you're the hero and your character had charisma, right? This one just lacks that. It lacks character, which is I think compensated for the design of this character. It was all over the place. So look at that hair. Oh my gosh.
The number of angles in his hair makes Soul Bad Guy go, damn, right. What kind of gel you using?
it's
right, and that man is all corners.
It's pretty wild. All right, so I think this one here, Mega Man 6 on the NES in 1994, I think one of the last games to come out on the NES as well. A Resident Evil 4 clone called Cold Fear on the PS2 and Xbox in 2005. God's Eater Burst on the PSP in 2011, Yakuza 4 on the PS3 in 2011, Samurai Warriors 4 Empires on the PS3, PS4, and Vita on 2016, and a lovely game called Galgun 2 came out on the Switch on PS4 in 2018 in Japan as well. And that's it for this week in gaming history. Thanks, guys. Oh, I love that track. Love that track. All right. Well, who's all ready for some news here? I know we just you got an earful, but I'm ready to see what's going on some quick bites. Wake up.
Yeah, right. Well, it's always my favorite part to talk about, but also fun for everyone in chat. I appreciate everyone last couple weeks is shouting out some of the weird stuff we were hearing about. Can't wait to talk about it here with Oliver as well, because I know that, especially given his history, we're going to have some fun stuff to talk about. Again, for Bite Size Quick Bites, going to give you the quick news for the week so we can get caught up on the last 7 days since we last chatted. First and foremost, let's talk about some more milestones. So Split Fiction, everyone. We know that's been doing really well right now. So Split Fiction from Hazelight Studios has hit a major sales milestone. In its first 48 hours, over 1 million copies have been sold. Wow. Not only that, but in its first 24 hours, it surpassed 197,000 concurrent players on Steam.
That's
absolutely insane. So, did you guys play It Takes Two?
Listen,
and A Way Out.
Joseph Fares hasn't missed for me yet. I don't know how the man does it. I don't know how that guy is like the shape. He's the physical construct of Goofy, right? He just goes out and does whatever. I call the man Joseph Big Balls Ferris because that's crazy that he just walked up on that stage, said "fuck the Oscars," and then he dropped one of the most fire games I ever played. I was like, well, yeah, he can say whatever he wants to now because at least he can back it up, right? So Split Fiction. Just bam, 1 million like that. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me in the least because the man delivers every time. I feel like every week now there's another game that just breaks records really quickly. It hits milestones really quickly. Not so much like break records. We had Monster Hunter Wilds Land. We had this land. A couple other titles I'm sure off the top of my head. I'm just forgetting.
Kingdom Come Deliverance.
Yeah, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Also amazing sales. So we're kind of getting those bangers we were talking about this year, and again packed at the very beginning of the year, right? These games are great, and Split Fiction I was excited for, but now just seeing how many other people love it as well, like I can't wait to play it. And this might be another one my wife will play with me because we played It Takes Two and she liked that as well, so I'm really interested in getting into that. To move on, Death Stranding 2 has a release date. I don't know if you guys knew that. With the reveal of June 26th, they actually dropped a new 10-minute trailer. I don't know if you guys have seen that yet, but this is also with news that there's a limited edition watch that's being released alongside the game that's going to cost $1,500.
Of course.
Right?
Which watch company is releasing it?
Look, I need Kojima to understand something. I can walk my ass into Target right now and get me a fucking Dick Tracy Apple Watch that will tell me, hey brother, you about to fall in 2 weeks, and it's right. for $200. What the hell is that watch going to do besides tell time? If it does my laundry, right? Oh, great. Okay, fine. Look, if you want to be cool and be like Death Stranding, delivering packages, guess what? You got a direct line to Amazon through here. You can just order all kinds of crap through Prime on your watch. Okay, that's interesting. I'd do that. But if he's like, well, it's a really nice timepiece. No, we're not doing that. Just stop. The man always tries to sell me something crazy. I don't understand. I don't understand. You know what happened when Death Stranding came out? The man sold us a whole baby in a box. I'm like, dog, stop. He's like, yeah, here's a baby jar. I'm like, don't do that. That's not a good idea. It's a very nice baby.
So it's from a it's Hamilton's it's from the iconic brand Hamilton, but essentially what they're doing is they're putting it in a PVD coated titanium case, and the bracelet has black coated titanium and built-in quick charge spring bars is what it says. Like, it's got angles, it's sleek, it's black, and it is expensive. That's
a legit watch.
It's a legit watch, but I mean, I don't know how many they're making. It's going to be super limited, but they're just doing it with this. It's crazy.
Can it tell time?
It can tell time. Yeah.
That's the question. That's the question.
And if that is too rich for your blood, if that is too rich for your blood, don't forget they're still going to do a collector's edition. So the On the Beach collector's edition has also been announced, and that's going to be a $229.99 price point. So there's going to be a statue with that as well. We know the last one had the baby, so we'll see what this one has. Speaking of more video games, Tripwire Interactive has announced that it is delaying Killing Floor 3 until sometime later in 2025.
Any reason?
Nope, just sometime later. Just some more time to polish it up.
Yeah, make it good.
Make it good. There is going to be also a standalone follow-up to RoboCop Rogue City. I don't know if you heard that, but that was announced, and it will be launching this summer. Yeah. So fans of Rogue City are going to get even more RoboCop, which
Shout
is
out
fantastic.
Andre.
I haven't.
All right, Assassin's Creed Shadows
loves it.
What's that?
I said I haven't played Rogue City, but everyone I know that has played it absolutely loves it.
We were talking about 80s nostalgia, and if you haven't played Rogue City, play Rogue City. Like, I think that'll be up your alley, especially if you enjoyed the movies. I mean, if you didn't watch them at all and you're not into that, no. I understand. But Verhoeven universe is my jam, so I loved it. But back to Assassin's Creed Shadows, everyone. It's coming up, right? That release is finally coming up. But confirmed by the game's creative director, it should last more than 80 hours with all the side content included. And in case you missed it, there was a 20-minute gameplay that was released with the actual dev there talking about it. There is a link, James, if you want to throw it in. That's just a link to the IGN vid, so you can see some gameplay of it and hear the dev kind of talk through some of their decisions. So if you're looking to get a little more gameplay, if you're still on the fence about it, definitely check that out. But that with 80 hours, decent sized game. We'll see if it lives up to all the hype. So we were talking about Chrono Trigger earlier, lads. It's 30-year anniversary, kind of crazy. That thing is so old, I feel even older now. But Squeenix is celebrating that 30-year anniversary by announcing various projects spanning beyond the games world, and those projects will be released throughout 2025. So, of course, fans immediately petitioned for an HD remaster and urged reports to current consoles, all the fun stuff. So, sorry, no HD update news. I know we all were talking about it earlier and getting hyped, but we're going to get more content kind of expanding on the world and going beyond the game specifically. So if you love Chrono Trigger, there'll still be some fun stuff this year for the anniversary, but no HD. Sorry.
It's watch.
Listen, I still say that if that game gets remade, considering how Square Enix has been doing, their remakes of their tentpole titles, hint Final Fantasy VII, there is already a solid blueprint for a Chrono Trigger remake, and it is called Grand Blue Fantasy Relink.
Yeah, there's some solid stuff out there nowadays, especially with the Suikoden re-releases as well. I think it's really a prime time to have that. We've had a lot of these 2D, 2.5D remakes, re-releases, updates to these classic titles. I am honestly surprised we're not getting another Chrono Trigger, but I can't speak for the dev team and what they're working on behind the scenes, and if there's some kind of like limitation as to why they can't do it, or if they don't think it's financially viable. I don't know. The fact that they did release it, because remember they did the Nintendo DS release of it, and that was really well done as far as releases go, to go to handheld for these classic titles. So I would imagine some kind of technology is there for them to do that. There's got to be something holding them back. Anyway, Diablo is back in the news as well. James, I know that you were talking recently how you're trying to get through the season. It has been extended, as you already know. But Diablo 4 is back in the news because Diablo 4 Season 8 is introducing significant difficulty changes after players voiced concerns about the game becoming too easy. So it is launching April 29th, and I don't know if you feel it's too easy, but they're talking about how they're going to change it up because there's a lot of concern from the devs and from the players as well that it's so easy just to burn through the early part of the game, grind to the end, and then it's pretty straightforward to just start one-shotting bosses. It just feels like you're churning through the content too quick. So to combat that, the devs have laid out some ideas. One of the ideas is they're going to be having fewer legendaries drop during leveling. So the lead up that first area, you're going to see less and less legendaries when you first start out. The drop rates from what they were saying are still going to be the same in the end game when you get there, but the lead up to it, it's going to be a little drawn out, try to force people to like enjoy the game, enjoy the content, not just burn through it. On top of that, however, the end game players will face more challenges in order to reach higher tournament tiers. So elongating the early game, making it a little bit harder to get to the later tournaments and the later ones, just kind of stretching out the game a little bit. And hey, speaking of changes, D4 boss Rod Ferguson has revealed that Blizz may also look to move away from the game's current battle pass system.
Boo.
So don't know how that's going to change just yet, but they were calling out just some of the ways that battle passes maybe feel a little stagnant because everyone's kind of copying the same style now. There was pointed out like some games will let you choose what you're working towards, and that might be what they're kind of working towards next. So not like a huge flip of the system, but making it more like personalized to what you want to grind towards. On the back of that Diablo news, one other thing that broke too was that there's now more players in Diablo 2 Resurrected than there is in Diablo 3. So they finally surpassed each other on the charts.
Yeah,
James, you played a lot of Diablo. What do you think about that?
I'm gonna quote a couple of those things. First bullet point: fewer legendaries during leveling. Don't think that's a problem. I don't think I've ever seen a legendary drop during leveling. Well, at least I'm thinking unique items, but like legendaries, I don't think that's a big issue, honestly. The big change, of course, is the Battle Pass. The only reason I keep coming back to Blizzard's Diablo 4 right now is more story, right? They trickle in a little bit of story there. But the Battle Pass is actually good value. And I know that's hard to swallow for a lot of people, but when you finish the Battle Pass in Diablo 4, you have enough money within the in-game currency to get another pass for free. So just play the game. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. Them removing that, I feel like it's almost intentional so they can charge you for something else, because you get a lot of value in that battle pass. Honestly, you get a full set of skin for all your characters, right? A lot of cosmetics, mounts and stuff like that. And I feel like for like $10 you get like $30 worth of stuff, and of course the refund for the next season to pay for it as well. So then moving out of that, I think they just want to find a better way to charge you more stuff. Also, numbers being shared between Resurrected and Diablo 3. Yeah, I don't blame them, because Diablo 2 Resurrected, is technically a newer game than Diablo 3, but in my opinion, Diablo 3 is almost similar to 4. So if you want to play a game, like if you were to choose between Diablo 3 and 4, just play 4. But 2 is so different than the Diablo 4 and 3 model that, of course, yeah, it's a totally different gameplay than the other Diablo games. So that makes sense.
So to clarify, just on that note, because it's definitely worth talking about, they're not talking about getting rid of the Game Pass completely or not offering the same value or overcharging you more or changing you earning those coins. Sure. What they were talking about and what Rod Ferguson was talking about, this was at the DICE Summit, the 2025 DICE Summit, when he was speaking to GameFile. But he was describing the modern battle pass as we know it, how it is in Diablo 4 right now, as quote unquote a probably an antiquated system. There's different ways to gamify and to give players more agency. So I think what I would say is watch this space for us. I think we're going to be introducing some interesting things. So he was talking kind of highly about Call of Duty's map battle passes, where players can kind of prioritize what they want to unlock next. So the value could still be there as you currently know it, but being able to choose what you want to unlock next instead of being railroaded into their standard and premium tier. Here's what you get at level 50. Here's what you get at level 25. You just get this thing along the way. So that, and potentially more crossovers with cosmetics. So just maybe kind of changing up a little bit, giving you more agency in your battle pass. That sounds like a win to me, as long as they don't take out that value like you mentioned. But again, that's just the news. That's just what's kind of saying that it's not a confirmation of things changing, but just kind of an interesting thing to talk about and just be like, hey, here's something that's happening in the industry. Speaking of happenings, let's go into the rumor mill. So as always, take these as a grain of salt. This is not confirmation of anything happening, just some interesting stuff that we were reading about, and just, again, hopefully kicking up some different stuff to talk about. So leaker with a good track record, Bill Kuhn, has shared that Indiana Jones's PS5 release will be coming on April 17th. So we were talking last week about this, about Indiana Jones coming out probably in April. At least that's what the leakers were saying. And now this guy is saying April 17th with an early access premium edition that lands on April 15th. In addition, we've also spoken about the God of War anniversary event, right? We've been talking about that a lot lately. A lot of leakers have been kind of hot to trot about, is it coming out? Are we getting this like remaster of the original trilogy? What's happening? So Santa Monica has thrown some water on that. They've confirmed that the God of War anniversary event won't feature any planned announcements related to the series, so no remasters yet. So that's one rumor that's gone. Speaking of collections, the Gears of War collection is getting some more leaks, which some of our chat have brought up before. On X, Detective Seeds has stated that the game was added to the PS Store backend and revealed a mid-2025 release. This was also corroborated with from the details that there was no multiplayer that's going to be in this collection. Journalist Jez Corden, who will show up a couple times tonight, stated that they've also heard no PvP, but there will be campaign co-op. So it doesn't sound like there will be any multiplayer in the collection that's coming out. Also, Game Rant is reporting that leakers are making noise about Gears of War E-Day and that it's likely going to be delayed back into 2026. So don't expect it in 2025. If that
another year, huh?
Another year. Who knows when in that year, but it's most likely being delayed if we are to believe this. Speaking of internal sources, multiple internal sources have shared that the Until Dawn remake developer Ballistic Moon is effectively closed. This is on the back of layoffs in 2024 and a bunch of unanswered bug reports from people who are playing the game right now. Those who spoke mentioned that the owners tried to keep things moving forward, but couldn't secure more funding or a new publisher. So nothing confirmed with that yet, but some internal sources were talking to journalists and mentioning that it's effectively closed. That's a little sad to hear, especially because Until Dawn still has its fans. Speaking of journalists, Jez Corden of Windows Central, Microsoft is working to launch an Xbox branded handheld later in 2025. So I love it. We've been talking about this a lot lately, but we'll talk about it a little bit more during the articles I have to share this week. But just to brush over this really quickly, it's codenamed Keenan, and it is not a Microsoft produced device. They'll be working with a partner, kind of similar to the ROG Ally.
So will they be working with Kel?
I was gonna say, what is this? The Microsoft Good Burger? Like,
so think of it as Lenovo's SteamOS, like their partnership with Valve kind of thing. It's reported to be more PC oriented, running full Windows, and will look unmistakably Xbox with like a guide button on it and everything. So expect, PC Game Pass in the Microsoft Store to be available there, but the potential to install things like Steam, according to Corden. And we had talked about that before, I think on a podcast 2 or 3 weeks ago, about, hey, if you could install Steam on it, it'd be kind of cool. So that's kind of coming to fruition potentially. So there's some more hot news there. It's hard to say regional prices are going to be indicative of what's happening as a whole, or that there are signposts of things to come. But notable Nintendo community leaker Central Leaks has pointed out that Latin America's Switch title prices are increasing, and followed it up to claim that the Switch 2 games will cost even more, coming in at $70. This does match the asking price for first-party games that other systems have on their titles, so it's not out of the realm. Plus, we already know of a $70 game, and that was Tears of the Kingdom. That was the first $70 game on Steam, so it shouldn't seem like much of a shock anymore. What do you guys think about that?
Prices go up, man. That's going to be a conversation for sure later on today.
Right, and we've talked ad nauseum about the cost of video games going up, the cost of dev it, the cost of even creating consoles and how they sell them at a loss. And that's where the first article comes in. So let me pull that up here.
Let me say this. Because I don't know the discussions that you guys have had, but I've sat and thought on it for a while, and I've talked about it on stream. It doesn't bother me as much as it bothers other people. Of course, I'm going to be bothered if you're asking for an extra $10. I'm like, damn, that's my burger and fries. What are you doing, right? But on the other hand, it doesn't bother me as much, is because video games have been shockingly recession-proof for way longer than they should have been in the first place. Since we're all of a certain age here ourselves, we remember when video games cost $80. You go into Toys R Us, yeah, you were dropping $80 on a Super Nintendo game back in the day, or on a Nintendo 64 game, right? It wasn't until the PlayStation even came around and said, here's how cheaply we can produce these in mass. And developers, it was like the last time developers were like, oh, we can actually pass those savings on to you. And that's how you ended up with the PlayStation disc setting you back only $40. And that set the standard for the industry when Nintendo was going, well, we're still going to do Nintendo 64 cartridges, and you're going to pay out your ass for it. Like, it was just kind of one of those things. And then we held pretty true. Like, we moved into the PS2 era, and games started turning into $50, and we were all still pretty okay with that, just because video games tend to hold their price for a very, very long time at a specific price point. So, we've been on $60 for a video game more or less since the PS3 era, right? And that was, oh god, I mean, PS3 came out in 2006, so we sat on that for 16 years. That's actually pretty incredible, right? And if a game really is truly great, yeah, I'm gonna pay it, because I'm a fucking idiot. That's why, because I'm stupid, right? But I'm aware that I'm stupid. I'm going, yeah, for a top tier release, yeah, I'm gonna pay it. Tears of the Kingdom, I paid it, right? I was like, well, I'm about to go up in Hyrule and act stupid again for another 150 hours, right? Or Monster Hunter Wilds. I'm like, yeah, my black ass will be there for a few hundred hours, so yeah, I'll pay the $70 for that.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to get $70 out of me for your 5-hour experience, I'm gonna have to tell you to go away and rethink your entire business strategy. It's not gonna happen.
This kind of parallels what we've talked about before about us working in a video game store and always talking about, like, and we've done this on our show as well. The what's your price? Like, is it worth the price to play it? And a lot of games nowadays, as mentioned, the ballooning cost of dev for a lot of these games, it necessitates an increase in price in order to afford these, just because of how much it's growing and how big these teams have to be to create these AAA games. So I understand the business side of it. It comes down to, am I getting my money's worth, like you said? So something like, one of the common conversations I have with people is like, why do you still play World of Warcraft? It's like, I'm only paying $15 a month for this game, and I'm putting in hundreds of hours, instead of paying $60 to $70 for a game I play for 20 hours and then I'm done with it. Right. So Yeah, it needs to go up. And the funny thing as well is when we bring up retro titles, a lot of these SNES games that we were talking about, when they released back in the day, cost about 60 to 70 bucks, if not more, for some of those titles. That was the price back in the day. It does shift around. So it's not outside the realm. Again, it's always going to come down to, is it worthwhile to people? Is it worth their money, the time that they get out of it? And until games consistently release broken, like some have been lately, a lot of people won't raise a stink too much. The extra $10, if they get, like you said, another 50 hours out of it, even, like, it's worth it. Grand Theft Auto potentially being the prices that it's going to be, we'll probably talk about that here in a little bit. That is going to be something where, like, do I get enough time out? Do I play GTA Online? Before I get too far out of it, Andre, I saw you say something in chat about the Gears of War collection. The online that I was talking about before, just to reiterate, is most likely just the multiplayer maps and stuff. The multiplayer PvP stuff is not going to be in the collection. Most of that stuff was run on their servers, so they're not going to have servers up and running for that. So they're going to have the couch co-op or the campaign co-op, and that's going to be it. You're going to have the campaigns out of it. It's not going to be the multiplayer maps. That's what I'm assuming what those leaks were talking about, and it makes sense when you think about they're not going to spin up new Gears of War servers for that, for just a collection before E-Day lands, and they'll just lump everything into that multiplayer. We'll see. Anyway, so we were talking about Jez Corden earlier from Windows Central. They shared information during the Xbox 2 podcast. To reiterate, they're a longtime Microsoft insider. They've shared this kind of information before, so it comes from a source that we can believe. The next console, from what they're talking about, and again, we talked, I think, last week as well about, is Xbox even going to need another like physical console or anything like that, because of their shift to bringing out games on other platforms, going multi-platform, going kind of that publisher route, right, Oliver? That was the like framework we were talking in before. According to this, there will be another Xbox, another physical console that you're going to get. It is going to be, according to them, a PC in essence, but with a TV-friendly shell. So who knows what that means just yet, but it sounds like it could be seen as early as 2027. I don't know if that's going to be too early for a lot of people. So it's going to be even closer to a PC, even more so than an Xbox S or X is right now, like really leaning into that. So one thing I want to bring up with that is, don't think of that as doom and gloom, the fact that it's becoming more PC-like. As it says here in the article, by turning its next console into a TV-friendly PC, Microsoft could greatly simplify its game development requirements. Instead of learning unique APIs and hardware quirks, developers would essentially be creating PC games while still targeting fixed hardware requirements, making optimization much easier than for PC. The shift in hardware approach would also allow Microsoft to delay or even skip the dev kit phase. As Corden explains it, recent rumors about a next-gen Xbox dev kit being in circulation are not accurate, because the PC-centric concept of the upcoming console generation means all developers really need is a list of hardware specs to target, at least for the time being.
Interesting.
So this is kind of a little bit of twist on what we were talking before. So I'm going to throw it to the panel here and kind of ask your thoughts on this. The fact they're going to make it a little bit easier for devs to like create games for, because let's be honest, one of the biggest issues with Xbox right now, at least for devs to like making games for Xbox, is having to create that Xbox Series S version of the game, and some devs skipping over it completely because the amount of time and money that goes into having to create two separate Xbox versions in addition to creating a PC port and a PlayStation 5 port.
It's true. It's like they kind of made their own version of the Wii U within their own company, right? With the Xbox Series S, because they do have to kind of work with limited specs on the same freaking game. So it's kind of frustrating. I totally agree with that.
Oliver, what do you think?
My history with Xbox is weird. Once again, us being old hats, I was there when the Xbox launched originally, and I've hated that brand for as long as I can remember. Right? I no, don't get it twisted. I had to own an Xbox because I did not have PC money at the time, and a brother has to play Morrowind. That's just it's just the way it went, right? But the original Xbox just burned out on me. The Xbox 360 got hit with the red ring of death. They've just constantly misstepped as every time with me. But the kicker is that my wife, for our anniversary last year, she got me an Xbox Series X or Series S just because I've been waffling on it. I was like, I want to see what Microsoft's up to over there. This is such an intriguing concept, right? The halfway point, the low cost barrier to entry. They really wanted to get people into that next generation without breaking their wallets. And I was like, this is a really good idea, but that mandatory, you have to do this, is the thing that hurt them the most, more than anything else. But I sat down and I played that Xbox, and for the first time in history, I had a good time with an Xbox. I think it's one of the best systems I've ever played. It's got one of the best controllers I've ever held. I was like, oh, my old hands can hold this, and I don't feel like dying after a 4 or 5 hour game session. But I think the idea of them effectively just making a Steam machine with this upcoming thing. You know what? We're not doing dev kits. You're like, look, it's just going to have an RTX, yada, 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 and it's going to have 16 gig of RAM. Sort your own life out, right? I don't know how that's going to work. I think it's going to be really interesting. I think they better price it correctly, or the PC crowd is going to chew these guys up and spit them out. Like, it's got to be, they got to do it just right. Could it work? Yes. Is it a risky move? Also, yes, like probably one of the riskiest moves I've ever seen, but they've got to get something. Microsoft needs to get something to work, because they're hemorrhaging money after that Activision Blizzard purchase, and we're all kind of seeing it and going, "Uh-oh." Like, you can try, but
So it is interesting. It is interesting you mentioned that. So the biggest thing I'll mention in response to that, and I'm super glad you brought that up. Great points. Microsoft is only losing money on the hardware. Their Game Pass is printing money for them. So the biggest point for them to make gains was the hardware side of it. And it seems to me, at least, like reading this article, if this stuff comes to pass, if this is how they're going to roll this out, this is very smart. It pushes back against the biggest things they had issues for, which was getting games on that console, especially first party games. And if they're going to make it that much easier to get the PC games that you already love just to play on your console, like they're already doing right now, they're going multi-platform with all their stuff. If they're creating a user-friendly and affordable box that just has all that stuff right there, that the devs are able to create stuff and reduce their prices, all of those dev houses in Microsoft now will see their costs go down. Now they're creating a game for Xbox and PC that's going to be the same exact kind of thing, and they're going to be able to ship that out. So every single one of their dev studios saving money. A lot easier for devs to port stuff to Xbox, which again was the biggest issue with having a Series S and a Series X.
Yep.
And oh man, there's so many good possibilities that come out of this, with Game Pass still being their bread and butter. And especially if these games day and date are coming out on PS5 as well, those titles now, they only have to create 2 ports for, a PlayStation 1 and a Microsoft one. So there's a lot of upside here. Like you said, it's absolutely a risk. I don't know how they're going to market this just yet. I mean, you've already seen a little bit of blowback to their marketing about Xbox is everywhere, or everything is an Xbox. Like, people are kind of confused about it. It's going to be a very interesting rollout. Again, a great point. How they roll this out, how they sell people on, are going to be the big risk here. But there's a lot of value in it, just reading through this article if it comes to pass. I'm interested what Ace and James think about this as well.
Well, what's really getting me is, again, I'm optimistic about this because, it's just like we've been bringing up consistently. Hardware parity between platforms, especially between the Xbox, between Xbox and PC. If you've got them both basically on a level playing field as far as just what is logistically needed for developing for these systems, again, just, removing more of the moving parts, so that way it's just you're developing for PlayStation and you're developing for Microsoft. You develop for Microsoft, then that's basically 2 platforms, or even just one that you'll have to deal with, which will be that next generation that next generation Xbox, that Steam machine. But
James,
again,
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just the fact that they're eliminating moving parts, which means they're eliminating vectors for failure.
James?
My first thing is, how much is it, right? Also, second is, who is it for? Because you have to think about it this way, and this is from my experience of selling the Wii U and the Wii to our common audience at Reset Games, right? They don't know the difference, and they thought the Wii U was a handheld versus a system. So if Microsoft and saying we're creating a new Xbox, they gotta call it something else, or otherwise they're just gonna think it's a newer one. What makes it different, right? Calling it a TV friendly PC, right? Is that what they said? That's confusing as hell. And also, if you're a PC person, you don't need that. So it's not for you, right? So who is it for? It's going to be for the person that has an Xbox that has no knowledge about computers or anything. So I understand it's going to be cheaper. I think there are a lot of pluses to this. Is it consumer friendly though? Is it going to be enough? Do you have to spell it out for the average consumer? Because that's the problem with this from what I'm hearing right now. I love Game Pass. I think it's a great value. It's awesome. If they call this the Xbox One Game Pro bonus, right, for the name, but like, what is it really? And right now it's kind of confusing to me. And I'm like, I've been in it. So that's going to be a problem for the guy that hasn't been in it, is what I'm saying. So,
right. And some of that is down to me probably not explaining it exactly as they mean. We're going through sources and all that stuff, right? Look, from what I'm seeing, again, this is just like reading between the lines a little bit. What they're saying is a PC that is just a small shell, a TV friendly shell, being is that you can plug it into your TV and go.
Yeah.
It's a PC.
It's like a Roku,
that is,
right? Or what's that thing that Google made?
Except not built into your TV like a smart TV, but it's still going to be a console that is effectively, going to be like this size or whatever, that will just plug into the TV and you're good to go. It's like having a full PC there. I don't know if you ever tried to do like big screen with Steam or try to hook up your PC to a TV. It's a pain in the ass. It doesn't work most of the time.
It still thinks it's a PC, right? I get that. It's just they're taking the direction of that one system that failed drastically, the Galaxy. It was made by like Amazon or like a big brand. The Luna, right? And then everybody thought that was going to be the thing. You can play and stream every game. Sounds like Game Pass, right? And then no one cared, right? After that, or it got too much and this is probably irrelevant. It got too internet reliant. So if their internet was down, they couldn't play anything. And that was the whole point of that thing, is to play video games. And if the internet's out, you want to play a video game, right? So it's going to be a tough one, I think, and I hope it does well. It's priced fairly for what it does. If you're going to remove the pretty much the stuff that, the nuts and bolts that you need the disc in, right, and also to make it easier for the average person to get Game Pass, because I think that's what this is. It's a Game Pass access, completely. But it has to be a point where, like, why don't I just get a PC instead? And I feel like if they're really losing money on hardware, like this is a really, really careful, like Oliver said, they got to be really careful with this, because right now it is not for the PC person, because they would already know that. And for the console person, is it too complicated, or is it too weird for them, or are they intimidated by calling it a PC, a soft shell PC or whatever, right? So it's going to be.
They definitely won't call it that. And to push back a little bit, the Luna only had 130 games on it, so nowhere near what you'd get with an Xbox.
That is, man, I tell you what, I have two friends at work that had the Luna. They hated it when their internet went down.
Yeah, it's going to be the same for any PC that doesn't have a game that's offline, or a system that's offline. So again, the biggest nuance to put on that is that it's you getting more than just Game Pass. So yes, how they market this is going to be the big problem. What is it going to be marketed as? How much is it going to cost, and how powerful is it going to be? The leads at Microsoft said that they're trying to aim to deliver the largest technological leap ever made in a single console generation. Great, that means nothing to the average person. Like, no idea. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with the handheld that we were talking about earlier. That could be a really early indication of how well this plan works, and that might be why they're kind of rolling out the way they are. if we do get this little handheld console that they're talking about at the end of the year, that's supposed to be a Windows PC effectively in your hand with Game Pass and Steam on it, right? So if that doesn't work, then they're going to completely redo what they're doing with the next console. So it's really early to tell.
I'm going to ask the panelists real quick, and we can move on. I'm just really interested about this. How many of you know that play video games own like a Steam Deck or a Asus ROG, whatever, those expensive handhelds?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't have one. I've considered it though.
Right. And so
I can't afford it. I have tested them, and I have friends who have them, and I love the Steam Deck, and I've actually enjoyed the PlayStation Portable as well, the PlayStation 5 one.
So with that said, we already have established consoles that we prioritize over those handhelds, right? And so if any case, these handhelds are a luxury item to us. They're not a priority to us. So who is this for? The person that has at least $500 in their bank account to burn. Right. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. And when I'm talking about like cost or stuff like that, like if I can just get this same experience cheaper on this thing, why would I get this instead? So that's kind of the same concept I'm doing with this PC box thing. I don't even know how to explain it, right? Like you said, but that's kind of the same idea and philosophy. They should be thinking about this in the office every day. Well, why don't I just get a PC instead? Or who is this for exactly?
I don't know. Why do people take stuff on the go? That's the reason I didn't buy the Switch in the first place, and the reason that there is such a market for the ROG Ally and the Steam Deck. I have a couple friends, like, they really need to play off their TV, or they take it on the go, or they work the kind of job out there where they can't be in front of their consoles or PCs all day. And a lot of people can't, especially with the pushback against remote work. I think there is a market for it. But again, there's so many question marks, and it's not going to be mass market. So they could end up losing a ton of money again. We'll see. Who knows? Anyway, that was the articles for the week. Appreciate you guys kind of putting it on that, talking a little bit about it. Always super interesting and always entertaining to kind of learn a little bit more about the stuff that we each see.
Yeah, just from everything that we've talked about thus far with those articles and with the rumor mill, it's a lot to keep an eye on.
I mean, there's the game space is definitely changing, right? And the whole argument of increasing prices, right? And Ubisoft saying you better get used to not owning your shit. That's a fucking problem, in my opinion, because they're saying the quiet part out loud, in my opinion, right? And them pushing higher prices on maybe physical makes sense because they want to incentivize you to go digital, right? But at the same time, they are creating these games as like the physical is just an install, right? While you have to log into their servers or whatever for DRM and whatever other reasons. So it is going to be a battle that for the future gamer and where we end up. So, but hopefully, like I said, if you don't care about that stuff, it's value for you because, as Ace said, barrier of entry is a big issue for people that are casual. Right. So, and it's something that I feel like the more options you have, the more people, and it's more available to the wider public and more people can play your game. So that's what's more important to me is people play your game. Right. That's why, I do things like, what's your price?
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, that's why Vampire Survivors blew up. It was so cheap.
Why not?
It was so cheap. You're like, let me go find out what this nonsense is about. Yeah. Oh my God, I've been here for 200 hours. How many guys you killed today? Oh, about 70,000 or so. Right. Vampire Survivors is the Dynasty Warriors of Sprite games. A lot of people die. And you go and do it again.
And then you have Warriors Abyss.
That's what I was going to say. They literally took you seriously and were like, we're going to just make that for you. Not a problem.
Right. They're like, wait a minute. These guys have the right idea. Let's do that. Let's go. Yeah. But, I'm not sure if Ace ever told you about this, but I had never even thought about the idea before Ace on our own podcast a decade ago. The value proposition, right? That's the two most important things that happen here. Value proposition and who the hell is this for, right? You can't just be like, well, this costs this much money, and people are going to go, why? And then you definitely have to know who the hell you're selling this thing to in the first place, right? People that like PC are playing games on PC. That's where they are. They already know, right? So you're not going to sell them an Xbox console when their PC is probably better, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. And on the flip, just like you're saying, the Steam Deck and things like that, I can see the value in it. Like I've personally even considered getting a Steam Deck or anything for like that for when I do want to play something on PC. Even though I have a PC that's perfectly good for gaming, no, that's my streaming machine. It's to do everything and manage everything at once. But to just be able to go, you know what? Let me just plop this right down here in front and stream straight from that to keep it a nice, clean environment and not have it, go up in flames as PC can sometimes be. You're like, oh, I'm going to play this. Next thing you know, no, dog, you are not playing that game whatsoever, as everyone has painfully learned from Monster Hunter Wilds, right? That separation, I think, is very good, but it's going to be a trick. It's going to be a trick with this stuff, and Nintendo just beat everyone else to the punch. Right, with the handheld thing. Like they said, why not both? And we were like, why did you even make the Wii U in the first place? You could have just skipped that step altogether.
Well, it's funny they bring that up because if you look at the Switch and the controller for the Wii U, they're like 80% the same. So I think they gutted a bunch of Wii U controllers and they made the Switch out of that. Like they put it back to the drawing board, right? And it's funny when we were working at Reset, Nick and I was telling Nick, I was like, I think it'd be a great idea to bring this handheld and make it dockable on any TV, right? And but also a handheld at the same time, right? Maybe it'll run better on the dock, right? But and then the Switch came out, and I was like, there you go. That's exactly what we were talking about, and that's why I think it sold like hotcakes. Also, at the same time, I think Nintendo made it very clear that they were going, we're going to just do our own thing. I don't care what you guys are doing. Go fight it out yourselves, right? And Nintendo goes, we're just going to keep doing our own thing. I don't care about the hardware. Like, we're just going to make our own stuff. And I think that's why people have a Switch and another console, right? Because like, I think there are more chances of somebody getting a PS5 and a Switch versus a PS5 versus Xbox One. Because one, proposition value, there's no Mario on Xbox if you have a PS5, right? There's no Mario on PS5 if you have an Xbox, but there is on a Switch. Right. So if you own one of those two things already, even on PC, if you have a PC, you're going to get a Switch because there's no Mario on the Switch. So that's what I mean.
I have a PC, a PS5, and an Xbox One. I have no Switch.
So you just need one more, the Switch, to get all the Infinity Gems. I hear you. So.
Right, to get a Yahtzee.
I need a job first. So send me those CVs. I'm ready.
Yeah, but I think that's why the Switch sold so much, because it's definitely like it's so unique in comparison to the other consoles that like even people that are not interested in having a console have a Switch because it's mobile, it's handheld, and plus it's cool. Like I've seen people use the Switch as a console. You lay it up and you give the other controller to your buddy and you just play right there. That's super cool. Like the other systems can't do that, right? And the games on it typically are very quick. And you're right, yet, right? So I think that's one of the big things. So
I can only assume at this point that Xbox handheld is going to have a kickstand on it, and you can connect your controllers wirelessly to it.
I would immediately buy that Xbox handheld if they get the announcer for Killer Instinct 1 to sell me this thing, right? and I need him to say. Oh, wrong one.
Available in 1995.
Yes,
that's exactly what I want him to say that. While I'm trying to
so it's funny you mentioned that, just because we're starting to see like AI chatbots become like next level, and Sony right now it's been like leaked, like we're starting to get some like Sony branded chatbots, like Aloy will be a chatbot kind of thing. So maybe that's our future, man. You'll be able to choose that announcer. Like there's some great announcers that I'm going to add then if that's going to become a thing. But we're going to be getting chatbots.
AI Tim Kitzrow.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely something to make a value proposition to get a Sony game versus an Xbox, right? Like having Master Chief be your AI or Cortana talking to you. I mean, it's already on PC, right?
They already did Cortana. They already closed it. Like,
I'm just saying, like that could be a thing if whatever floats your boat, right? So it could be Mario. How annoying that would be.
or we can just get Pain from Final Fantasy X-2 for Oliver as his chatbot.
Thank you. I just want to talk to my wife a little bit and talk about beating up people. Right. It's a tiny little like a non sequitur just off to the side, since you mentioned AI. Did you guys last week? Did you talk about the PS2 game Lifeline?
Oh yeah,
we sure did.
As a matter of fact,
we sure did. We sure did.
I respect this podcast so much. Just for people who actually know that game exists. I'm like, they were so ahead of their time. Now is the time for that game to come out.
Yeah.
What was that? Because we also talked about the what was that? Bio something shooter we talked about as well with the voice commands. You had to shout at Bo.
Oh, binary domain.
Yeah, we brought up the binary domain as well as the fact you had to do voice
Gears of War.
or you could do voice commands in that game. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh, well, here's the other thing, right? I'm pretty sure the amazing people on this panel have played or heard of Boktai, right?
Hell yeah.
Boktai,
Take your ass outside. That's it, Kojima. Go outside, touch grass, nerd.
Technically, the only one of the reasons to get gamers to go outside is to make them play the game outside. And Boktai literally makes you go outside to charge your attacks or fight vampires with it, which is pretty impressive. Think about it this day. Another game that is beyond its time, of course. I think that's awesome. But the other thing I was thinking about too is like, Capcom seems to be having issue with these Resident Evil games going multiplayer. They did Reverse, right? They did, what was the other one before that? Umbrella Corps. What was the one before? What was the Dead by Daylight version, the clone?
Are you thinking of
was that Raccoon
Operation Raccoon City?
No, it's like Dead by Daylight where one of them is controlling the map and the survivors have to like escape from the map and the main guy sets up traps.
Yeah,
right?
Wait, was that Reverse? I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah, the Reverse is the one where you're like playing as Leon and you're like doing a death match with everybody else. That's the newer one.
The Outbreak titles? I forget.
No, the Outbreak, I'm actually leading to that, what I'm talking about. There's a multiplayer mode on like Resident Evil 4 or something. I can't remember. Or 9, one of those. You guys can look it up. And chat, hopefully, Resistance. There we go. So that was a Dead by Daylight clone. It's asymmetrical multiplayer mode, which is now discontinued, I think. But like talking about Lifeline, talking about games like Lethal Company, Capcom, Resident Evil Outbreak, remake that with all those things into the game, and you got yourself a formula. Even add a roguelite, like a little bit of feature in that where every experience is different, right? Every time you log in with your friends, you got yourself a formula over there, friend. So keep that in mind if you're watching. Okay, that's something in your library you need to rip back out because that's a money maker right there.
Yep.
And you're making a great, amazing point that I think that this is what I was kind of getting at with Lifeline. There's so many games that did not work in the time that they tried to do it, just not because it was a bad idea, but your technology could not keep up with that idea.
We could do an entire like panel discussion. Like we'll have a new section just for games that were before their time.
Yep,
absolutely.
This is just another set of them.
The Howard Stark Awards.
So it's
revisit
those ideas. Like just because it didn't work the first time, no, come back on it. Try it again.
Let's add that to the to do maybe a small section in the future. I think because that could be a fun conversation. That's
I'll
to our rhetoricals.
Yeah. All right. Well, actually, speaking of rhetorical, I wanted to really end the show with a good discussion on this topic. Right? Should video games be $100? I'm quoting Ace and Ace's thread with XQC earlier on X, which was very, very fun to read on that column because people seem to be like on both sides, right? And kind of sharing their own opinion on it. But I did a little bit of calculation on inflation in 1999 for the United States versus 2025. So as Oliver said, PlayStation 1 games cost about $40 during that time on the mid-range, right? Now that $40 is actually $76.27. So games are really costing $75 right now in reality, which is right about the same price they're asking us to pay currently for $70. And like Monster Hunter Wild was $70, right? Legend of Zelda or Breath of the Wild was $70. So he's not wrong when it comes to like we've been like, inflation free for so long. And is it viable for them to say, hey, maybe for like the super deluxe edition, $100 you get everything, right? So I kind of wanted to hear everybody's thought on this. I don't think the base price should be $100, but yeah, dev costs are expensive. You got to think about the people making this stuff, right? And but at the same time, is it worth $100? So I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Well, it's a lot like what I said in that thread, and to kind of summarize what I've been saying in regard to just gaming price, software prices as a whole. It's eventually going to get to a point where people are very likely to decide that they're just being priced out of the hobby. Because, again, $100 for the base price for a game. I mean, we're in an environment where a game release isn't, it's not one and done. It's not you get the product and that's it. There's always going to be, post-launch support, or day one bug fixes or expansions, and there more often than not, games release, one could say technically games release incomplete on launch. If not incomplete, there are a lot of times where games release broken on launch. So if you're asking someone to pay, $80, $90, $100 as the cost of admission for a game, and you've got this thing soft locking, or you've got it just straight up crashing, potentially breaking your system on day one, that $100 purchase that breaks your system could turn into a total of $600 at best, because you'll if you even decide to do so, that's replacing a whole system. So I mean, it really makes you wonder again, with the prices that are being quoted for certain games, like for example Grand Theft Auto 6, who is this for? Like who is it for that you're asking that kind of price and thinking you can get away with it unscathed?
This conversation feels like it's a bunch of different layers, but I think one layer that is need to be addressed is, the quality of the game is not really necessarily a reflection of the cost of the game, because not all games are created equal.
True.
Right? So the amount of budget Grand Theft Auto 6 has, right, is way different than something that we're going to get from Platinum Games. Right. And what you're saying is that, like, should this Platinum game be $100 if this GTA game is also $100, like, because like the industry will price games as they go. Of course, I think right now they do the A system, right? AAA, AA, stuff like that. So it's going to be very interesting because, I have a library back here and a lot of these games are not $60 in my brain, but they were all $60 on launch. Right. But saying is a good game, that's like, of course, an opinion, right? But having a game $100, I mean, technically it's about the same price of a Nintendo 64 cartridge at the time, right? So that's at the time. But of course, there is more material that need to be made with those cartridges. Hence why we got the price drop where the CDs came out. And that was a good thing, right? That was a good thing. Speaking of Switch games, they're going up $10. I think they're valid in raising it by $10 because of the materials. That's just personally, realistically, right? For sure. Will they be all good $70 games? No. And I think that's the same category here we're talking about. Not even though games are going to be an entry for $100, I think it makes the consumer wiser if they do more research in their game before they buy. Because, hear me out, chat, hear me out. This will make the consumer more wise in their buying power decision, meaning that it will make companies make less shitty games. Because if you get a game that's cheap, people are just going to buy it because it's cheap, right? I'll just buy it. But if you're like, man, I only have this much money, I got to be careful with this, right? I got to get the game. Right. And this whole system of like reviews and versus like YouTubers and stuff like that. I know there's a lot of layers, like I said, but honestly, I think it makes it more it makes the developers more responsible, or even the publishers. I don't know, that they have to make $100 game worth $100 game now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I definitely get where you're coming from on that. And again, I'm not even trying to speak to the quality of the game as I'm speaking more to the quality of the game from a stability standpoint.
Right, Ace. The problem with that argument, and I agree, it's definitely a part of it. And I'm only going to hop in now because there's some people in chat that are saying exactly the stuff that I was thinking. This is incredibly nuanced and is incredibly deep because there's so much going on in the industry. BC Walker mentioned, several friends quitting AAA and AA for indie because of ballooning prices and stagnant income. That's absolutely true. That's why indie is getting a resurgence right now.
Love it.
Also, Blue Riot brought up a good point that I've been on the dev side of things. The games that have these higher budgets need to sell significantly more at this price point to be viable. You look at something like Square Enix saying that the Tomb Raider or the Rise of the Tomb Raider game when that came out was a failure. It sold 3 million copies, but it was still a failure to them. That's
crazy.
Insane. So yes, like Shark Punch pointed out, investors and publishers are giving devs less money now. The ballooning costs have caused it where you have to get so many copies sold. So seeing a price increase for the game, again, it's scalability. It's a scalability issue. Indie games that are a smaller group of people, a shorter game, lower price, it's already like that. We have it in the market. We're talking right now about this top line value. Is $60 or $70 valid? Given what James was saying earlier with the increase in cost of materials even, and the fact that we have seen now inflation is a thing, but games haven't increased with inflation. That's a problem. And that's why we're seeing so many dev studios close and so many teams get dissolved and people lose their jobs because the industry health can't be sustained by those current prices with the current price of developing these games. So having a game that's $100 absolutely would ensure more of a long-term health and success of the industry. But then again, the flip side is, like Ace brought up, that could lead to a massive risk of disappointment because these games are coming out broken or unfinished. It's just like people are going to start pushing back against that. Not only that, but there's a lot of lack of transparency in the industry as well. So not knowing how this money's being allocated is kind of a big thing for a lot of people. If you're seeing $100 price tag, and then, as some people mentioned, Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to sell like gangbusters anyway, do they really need to increase the price? That game has been in development for, a decade now? It's costing them so much money. They have to sell so much. It'll make money in the end. It's going to set sales records. We know that. Does it need to be 100? That's nuanced. We can't really say. Right. And we can't really look at their financials. That's not something we have insight into. But again, nuance, context, there's a lot. It's super complex. It's hard to say. I think there needs to be a middle ground. We're already seeing scalability in the industry. It's going to need to be more scalable. These games that are becoming huge, as long as it's worthwhile, we will pay the price, right? And we need to make sure that this industry stays viable. And that's going to be some give and take from the consumers as well as the devs. Obviously that opens us up to a giant conversation. We don't need to get into it all about stagnating wages and stuff. It feels a little bit crazy for us because we haven't seen inflation for video games. Inflation also hasn't really seen an increase in wages as well. It's a big open Pandora's box kind of thing. That's getting out of the point. But now we're seeing with this kind of change or potential change, it's even more value for things like Games Pass. There's going to be subscription models. There's going to be options out there for people that maybe can't pay $100 for the game, but they'll be able to get a day and date, day one for maybe a higher subscription price. I mentioned World of Warcraft earlier. I'm paying $16 a month for Game Pass Ultimate. I have access to PC Game Pass games and my Xbox Pass games as well. All in one, all that price, day one for these games. Worth it for me within a year, and that might just be what it comes out to for people.
Also worth it, literally, if you don't want to buy $100 game that's garbage. right? So you get Game Pass, you play the game, you're like, oh, this game's actually booty, and then you just move on with your life and play the other games that are on there, right?
You don't even want to play a shit $40 game. Like
exactly,
like
this is why I push demos so much, but I know that costs money too, right?
Yeah.
So I think Game Pass is a good solution to just get people like barrier of entry, like you said, Ace. Super important that they get their hands on to play it. Because if they want to put more money down on it, and this is what XQC was saying, right? He was complaining about like how he was arguing that, oh, why are you complaining about $100 game when you spend more than $100 on skins and cosmetics? Kind of the same argument, but in a different perspective, right? Like you're willing to spend that money if you like the game. You know, imagine that. Like how many people have spent money on the First Ascendant because they loved it because it was free, right? Now there's some people that won't spend a dime on any game, right? And that's, you know, that's great too. But like you said, and the argument is like, how much investment do you want, especially if the game is terrible? And like I said, I'm all about making the consumer smarter and also and stretching out their dollar even more. But I'm also worried, like what Nick was saying. I am worried about these higher costs and then like making these super elaborate games that don't need to be elaborate. And this is why I'm loving the indie resurgence, right? Because I feel like some games are just bloated for the sake of being bloated because they want to add that value. And I'll end my rant here. Like, for example, like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, a lot of the people that love Assassin's Creed say, man, this game has a lot of content in it, but it gets boring because I'm just doing the same thing over and over again because it's bloated, right? But it's worth $100 because there's content in it. But like if the content is just repetitive, you know, busy work because you want to feel that you have value of it, is it a good game at that point? Is it still worth $100? Right? So it's all perspective.
Yeah, ultimately this really boils down to that the industry and consumers, us gamers, are going to have to find a balance between their needs and our budgets. It's just always going to be a conversation. Understand its nuance. Know that you are going to pay for the stuff that you feel is worthwhile, and that may not be the same for someone else.
You know, I think that one of the biggest issues that comes up with this video game pricing and you know, would you pay $100 for a game? I think that what ended up happening is that I think we all overcomplicated this situation in such a way that makes that a difficult question to even answer. I go back to Pulp Fiction, and when you recontextualize the question using Pulp Fiction, suddenly it becomes much easier. How much are you willing to pay for a milkshake? $5 milkshake. He's like, hold up. That's an expensive ass milkshake. He want to know, you put some bourbon in it or something? It's like he's just trying to understand why it's $5. Turned out it was a really good milkshake. He was like, I don't know if it's $5 good, but that was a pretty good damn milkshake, right? And so we have to look at this, and you know, it's pretty easy for me to go, I'm not paying $70 for no damn Assassin's Creed game. It's not going to happen. But then I look at Grand Theft Auto, and even though I don't necessarily want to pay $100, I know I would pay $100 because I know how much work goes into making a GTA game. Every single GTA that comes out is epic making. It literally sets the tone. It sets the standard for basically every other developer when people are going, oh, we're going to make a realistic game, or we're going to have a world with a lot of interactivity. They set the bar, and everyone else has to scramble to catch up to them. I mean, we can look at Red Dead Redemption 2 right now, which came out 7 years ago, and you're just like, holy crap, just the amount of detail, every single NPC voiced over, all the random, you know, just completely chaotic events that can happen around you, this monster-sized sprawling world. It's, what am I paying for $100, right? Or another way to look at it is a big pop culture moment. Lord of the Rings. That came out and people lost their damn minds, right? And you went in and you paid your little bit to watch that movie in the theater, and then you came back for the next two, and you're like, man, that was a good time. And then these goofballs said, we're going to give you the big old stupid mega, you know, extended edition. Boy, we about to give you 6 additional hours of footage And we got the back, but behind the scenes footage of Viggo Mortensen's busted up foot after he kicked that helmet. You're like, well, I got to see that. And they're like, we're going to charge you $150 for this box set. And people paid it because they liked it that much. So I think the real question is what game is worth $100 to you, not whether or not games should be worth 100. A game can cost anything. All the fellas here remember when Steel Battalion came out. That was like a $250 game, but that was a really special controller. That was a really unique circumstance. So we certainly have precedent, right, of going way past $100. Now, some of the younger people who might be listening, like, what's the Steel Battalion? No, you had to pay that much to play this game on the original Xbox. You couldn't play it with a regular Xbox controller. It came with a gigantic console controller. It was a very different and unique experience, right? So it is a case of it depends, right? Now, to go back to that milkshake thing, just to follow up on that joke, we have a local restaurant chain here called Zombie Burger. If people want to look that up, and they do milkshakes that cost like $8 or $9 because they do put alcohol in it. And it's like, oh, hey man, you can get you a Rice Krispie milkshake with bourbon in it. You're like, oh look, I get to have ice cream and get drunk at the same time. Those are two of my favorite things. But that's worth it to certain people. And some of us, sometimes we just want to go to McDonald's and get the broken ice cream machine milkshake, and we'll be happy with that too, right? It doesn't have to be one or the other, but I definitely believe that it is a case by case basis, and you better bring something unique to the table to ask me for $100. What I'm really saying is, if Kojima is going to sell me a baby alongside the game, then I'll take it. Like, okay, like here's $100 worth of baby. Damn it. Okay, sure, I'm in. Where is he going to go? On the mantle. Right? Give me $100 worth of something, and I'll gladly hand you $100 worth of something. Right? But don't try to sell me a McDonald's burger and tell me it's $18. No, that as far as I'm concerned, it's $2 double cheeseburger at best. Don't push it, right? Don't even push it. But if you're like, here's a burger, it's made out of Kobe beef, you're like, word? You're like, the Japanese beef? Like, oh yeah. No, this cheese, it they made it in the Himalayas. You can only get it 3 times a year. You're like, holy shit. So like, that burger's going to set you back $30. I'm like, well, considering the rare nature of the burger and the fact that I can only get it 2 times a year, yes, I'd be willing to try that. I'm in, right? It's very situational, and I think I understand everyone's major concern too. Is every Tom, Dick, Harry, Sue, Sally, and Bonstance, that's a joke for my people, they're going to think that their game that they're selling is by default worth $100 because Rockstar goes, here's a game for $100. It's like, yo, slow your roll. Everyone likes Among Us, but Among Us is not worth $100. Don't even try to trick yourself into thinking that, right? And there's going to be hard learned lessons there where people are going to spend all this time and all these years in development, and they're going to accidentally price probably a very decent game right out of the market because they think that their britches are bigger than what they actually are. You ain't Rockstar.
Unless the game is genre defining and industry defining, and then it will sell. And that's kind of the big thing this always comes down to. Something like Grand Theft Auto 5, I was looking it up while you were bringing up those great points. That game cost over $265 million to create. Grand Theft Auto 5. And at the time, it was the most expensive game to release. And it took them a long time to get that out. Now, obviously, that game made its money back. That's a good example of a game that obviously sold incredibly well, right? It wild, crazy numbers. I think they made over $8.5 billion, I think, worldwide since release on that game, and that's been like re-released and brought out to different platforms and new updates, all this stuff, continued dev that is being put back into the other games that they dev. That's how they were able to do the next Red Dead. That's how they're able to do, Grand Theft Auto 6, is because of that success. So again, that goes back to the point of, because of the sales, it was able to support them. But not every game is going to get that. You look at something like Concord that failed massively. The amount of money that Sony put into that, because they had faith in that, or faith enough to get it to the finish line to hopefully make money off it. And then there's like, oh no, this is terrible. 11 days on the market, pull the plug. This is terrible. Something like Cyberpunk, that costs between 436 million and 441 million to make. So that's double what GTA 5 cost to make, just for that game. And that came out after. So you can imagine that GTA 6, which has already been reported to have a map that's double the size of GTA 5 with the ballooning cost of games, that's got to get close to that, maybe $600 to $1 billion to get this game made, all said and done. So it's got to sell like crazy. So that's, again, part of the conversation.
Yeah, it's like
Absolutely.
I said, different layers, man. There's a lot going on out there, and there's a lot. There's like I said, there's different sides too. So it's all very fascinating. And appreciate chat jumping in and chatting about it, because this is it's important to everybody, right? And I get that, and this is very important too, since this affects all of us. Everybody on this panel, even you guys in chat, it affects you guys. So, but yeah, no, that's anything. Anything else you guys want to add for the night?
I am good. Let's go ahead and bring this to a close.
Okay. All right, Oliver. We appreciate you coming in, man, and hope to come back again and and share some of your wisdom with us. If you want to hang out for the ending, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, we appreciate you coming, man.
I just want to say that this has just been one of the best podcasts I've ever heard. And this is for everybody that's brand new and shows up, and they, the people that listen to our old show, that was with myself and Ace. I love everything that these guys are doing here. This is incredible. This is the type of structure that I had wanted on our old show in the first place, and these guys have followed it through even further. This is terrific. I'm gonna sub. Because I want to hear what these guys got to say. Since we're just right there just talking about selling things, nope, these guys just sold it to me. They're taking me down memory lane. They're talking about current issues. They're talking about current news. They're having their own opinions. We got Jamie, right? He's pulling stuff up and he's showing it off. Steve Jamie, right? We might call him Jeeve, right? I don't know, but I loved everything that was over here. It was such a treat to be on here, and also to meet you guys. What gracious host to just let some random ne'er-do-well like myself show up and spew bad opinions. No, I want to see this show actually come up and really, really go a place. So no, I had a blast. I love talking about the retro stuff, and this is like probably the highlight of my week, and it's Tuesday. So, you're doing good. Like you bet. Listen, here's what I'm going to tell you. I know you didn't get a chance to get into the Monster Hunter Wild stuff with Ace and his Insect Glaive tutorial and breaking that down. But I want to say this: like, the only way my week is going to get topped is if I get my goddamn Pierce coating decoration for both. And if you do that, then you guys take second place.
Oliver,
right?
I've got some bad news.
Don't you say it. Don't you say it. I swear to God, I'll come out there. I'll do it. I will do it. Don't even say you got Pierce functionality coating for the bow, because I will just take this entire desk and I will send it to the shadow dimension and hope that it comes and gets you. No. I'll do better. I will take you and I will throw you out of the universe like they threw Morgoth out in the Silmarillion. Like, you gotta go. Like, no, don't say it.
I won't.
You did the correct thing. Just you keep that fucking decoration to yourself. You just do one of these, keep it in your pocket, be like, I hope it works out for
The trick with Monster Hunter is to not want what you want to carve. that's the trick.
It really is. The desire
the desire sensor is real with that game.
I really want it. You can't have it.
Exactly.
But no, this was a great show, and it was such a treat. It was very much so a privilege to get back on a podcast and talk about the thing that I like and I love with other real professional villains.
Great.
So I hope this goes good, and I would love to come back whenever you guys feel like putting up with me.
That's easy. Always. Be super happy to have you back. Thank you so much for sharing your insight too and your
Oh, that's super
background.
cool.
That's
Plus, you
what
worked at
we do it
Funko
for.
Land. I kind of put you in. That's all I'm saying.
So wait, this guy's cool.
Yeah, you worked
He
at Funko
knows.
Land, so I'm good with that. You're in already. That's your in. All right. If you want to hang out for the outro, man, you're more than welcome. Is there anything you wanted to share as far as like socials or anything like that with the audience?
As far as socials, everybody can find me over at Oliver B. Campbell on Twitter. I don't call it X just because he wants to be cool. You know what Twitter is. Let's not act stupid. And of course, I'm over on Twitch at OBC TV. I'm basically streaming every single day, and I've got my head all the way up Monster Hunter Wild's butt right now. And of course, my own YouTube is OBC TV, and I really try to just kind of keep that just straight to clips and weird little moments and compilations from Monster Hunter and stuff like that, and the occasional tutorial.
Awesome.
That's about the gist.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's close it out. Courtesy of Chrono Trigger's anniversary. I know this is A's favorite track, so we always got to keep playing it, right? All right, chat. That's a wrap for Class 23 of the GQAzndood Gaming Academy. Huge shout out to everyone who tuned in, dropped the comments, and joined in on the discussion. Y'all make community what it is, and we appreciate you coming here every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we've covered some serious ground tonight, from retro classics that need a remake to our box art battle showdown to that juicy Xbox rumor, and of course, we'll get to Blazing Ace Nelson's Detect eventually, because I need to know more about this insect glaive, because they made some changes and I need to know. All right. So before we go, let us know in the comments what your favorite part of tonight's show was, and don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe so you don't miss the next class. We're live every week, like I said, 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, same place. Catch us on Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook. Hit those links and stay connected as always. And remember, as Gaspard the Guru of Time from Chrono Trigger once said, "Fear not, for all is not lost. Other paths may yet open." So keep an open mind and keep your hearts open as well. So no matter what game or life throws at you, keep moving forward. We'll see you to the next class. GQAzndood and the panel says good night. Have a good one.
Class dismissed. We'll catch you next time.